I am super relieved anytime I beat an RLK. I will say that, because the opposite of beating an RLK is you have to write home and tell your wife, I got beat by a 12-year-old playing a contender deck from Your Turn Games. Another mention for Your Turn Games, by the way. But it's a lot easier to say, hey, I beat someone, or just let that kind of just fizzle. You don't even have to say it. But when you have to admit you got beat by an RLK with that contender deck, like, I'm just saying. We'll stop clowning and move on.
Welcome to the Threshing Floor Podcast, your premier destination for discussion and commentary on the redemption trading card game and its community. Kick back and relax as we catch you up on the latest news, tournament results, and deck building strategies to take your game to the next level. Now, here are your hosts, John Hendricks and Ager the Wise.
All right, guys, that is us. He's Ager the Wise. I'm just Hendricks, I guess. My name pales in comparison to Ager the Wise and John Hendricks. Like, it's just a government name. Welcome into episode, I guess this is going to be number 78 of the podcast. This is your third episode already, Jake. Can you believe it?
That's crazy.
So we are back, brand new episode, and I mean, I'm excited for the things that we have in this episode because we've already technically recorded them, and now just to tell you, we're recording this last. So
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, we'll break the fourth wall. I'm always going to break the fourth wall. Okay, like my house is built with 3 walls. I don't have the fourth one, but we're glad that you have joined us here on this episode of the Threshing Floor. Hopefully, it's another great one to add to the catalog.
Yeah,
but obviously, we've got the standard segments that we've got. We've got a couple of new sound clips for you, which we're going to be debuting. We've got one for recent news. We've got one for tournament results. We also have a special thing that we'll share shortly, but I just wanted to go ahead, top of the hour here, let you know there is a sponsor for the podcast. Did you know that?
Is there?
There is. It is Your Turn Games.
Whoa.
And it's funny.
I did not see that coming.
It's funny because I'm pretty sure we broke a world record for how many shout outs we gave to Your Turn Games on this episode.
Yeah.
We are super glad to be in partnership with them to bring you this kind of content. We're glad that they have come alongside us with, helping us with the giveaway. And I foresee potential for more giveaways in the future, and all of that's cool. I'm super excited to be doing that. I think you're excited, Jake, for working with them. I don't want to build it up too much, but there's going to be a lot of Your Turn Games in this episode, a lot of references to it. So just we'll hit that at the top here. But I think we start off with the most important thing I can think of for this community in this hour right now where we're at. We're 43 days away at the time of release from the 30th National Tournament for Redemption. Now, there might be some controversy whether it's the 30th, but we're billing it as the 30th, so that's what it's going to be, okay? So we've got the road to Nationals 43 days away. I mean, give it 13 days, it's going to be under 30 days. Like, it's moving quickly.
That's crazy.
So if you're planning on attending, go ahead, make your plans, book your stuff, do it. If you're not planning on attending, shame on you. Why are you not? And let's see if we can fix that. But I am super excited for Nationals. I know that you're kind of you're semi-committed to it, but you're not 100% yet. So I know there's excitement there, though.
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and just run down some information about Nationals. We've got the date set. It's August 1st through 3rd. So at the time of this release, it's going to be 43 days away. And it's going to be at Allendale Baptist Church in Allendale, Michigan, which I think according to GPS, or if you look at Google, it comes up with a different city, something TWP. I don't speak the local language. But this tournament will be hosted by Jay Chambers and Ron Sias.
Yeah.
And there's something else that's going to be happening at Nationals that's kind of, well, I mean, it happens at most of the Nationals these days. But we will have a new set. The II set will be making its debut.
II Captain.
And that's going to be Israel's Inheritance. But also, there's a cool thing about that is that we'll be using a pack of that for sealed on Saturday of Nationals, which is kind of cool twist, getting to use that. I know we used GOC Phase 2, I think, was involved in booster draft at Iowa Nationals a couple of years ago. And then last year, I don't remember any.
I don't think so.
I don't think IR was used at all for anything. So we're getting back to that. But there's been recently some information announced about Nationals. So that's why I wanted to lead off this episode and tell you about it, because there's now been a brand new side event planned. By the time you hear this, you might have already heard about this, but we'll go ahead and give you the details here. There's going to be a side event on Wednesday at Primeval Games in Kentwood, Michigan. Now, that's about 32 minutes away from the host church. I did a quick Google search. It was about 32 minutes away. And deck check will begin at 5 to 5:45 with gameplay beginning at 6 p.m. sharp. Now, this will be classic format, so that means anything that's not banned is going to be legal for you to use in a deck for this side event. The side event is, I believe Mark is hosting it. And so he's got some deck boxes for the top 2 finishers in this tournament. So the top 2 finishers will get some custom deck boxes. One of those he shared an image for, and the other one he couldn't because it was edited by Roses. And if you don't know what Roses is, that's the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. I believe I said that right. If I said it wrong, oh well. But anyway, so Roses. And so I'm guessing it's probably an image from the new set. I would not be surprised if it was the image from like Mr. Hiatus's avatar image, because that one's just a beautiful artwork, even if it is AI generated. But another big thing about this, and I think I don't know if you have interest in this, but some people out there have a lot of interest in this, and that's getting a crack at that Mr. Classic belt. Dude, I know Booster Jones has got it, but Mr. Booster Jones always have it? No. Probably not. So the winner of this side event will get a seat in the Mr. Classic tournament, which is evidently being planned for later this year. So maybe not next year in the spring like it has been. So later this year. In addition to all of that, there's also a registration form.
Ooh.
And we found out some good news because we recorded this as the last thing in case more news came up. See, there's a strategy to the madness.
I like the strategy.
And there's a reason behind it.
Strategery.
We found some cool information about the pre-registration form. You get a little bonus if you register quickly. You want to tell the beautiful people out there what the bonus might be?
So the bonus is these negated tokens that are made by the Zombie, Zach the Zombie. These things look really awesome. So I'm really excited to, hopefully I can get some of those.
Yeah. So the first 100 people to register will get 2 of these wooden tokens that say negated. And then they say Nats 24 and they have the Redemption Flaming Sword icon on them. They look pretty cool. You woe something, throw this on there so you know it's negated. It's like a light switch. It's on, it's off. This is easier for you to look out and see what's on and what's not. There might be some people out there trying to procure additional supply of these. Mm-hmm. Like maybe I'll be offering people money for theirs. So if you want to sell yours and we can come to a fair agreement, hey, come holler at your boy.
I like it.
I don't want to set the market openly, but I'm willing to spend a little bit to get a few of these because every now and then in a game you have like 3 or 4 things negated. So you might want 3 or 4 of these tokens. That'd be cool.
That'd be really cool.
So pre-register, and then also announced was Baboony Tim is going to have some custom sleeves, deck sleeves. And I listened to his video and it sounded like he might just be giving these away, but I don't know. So I'm just going to say that you need to reach out to him and talk to him about it.
Yeah.
And
reach out to the ape.
So I guess with that, this will kind of circle us in to talking about Baboony Tim's content, because there's something that links Nationals and his content. But before we do that, we're going to debut, and we're already talking about kind of recent stuff because we jumped into Nationals, but we're going to go ahead and play you one of these new little transition segment pieces that we got to try to complete the full package. So we'll just go ahead and hit that for you so you can get a taste of it.
Sit back and relax while we get you caught up on all the latest news and notes from around the game and the community.
Hey, it's another sound clip.
Yeah.
But hopefully having those will help us complete the ensemble, and we'll be able to have everything transition in with those. But we're talking about Nationals, and now we're moving into content. What's the link? The link is that Babooni Tim has put out a Nationals 2024 primer. And I know that a lot of the information for Nationals, like, you know it in the moment, like you see it, you're like, oh, that's cool. You acknowledge it. And then a couple of weeks later, you're like, whoa, Nationals, I just had a brain fart. Like, what's this aspect of it or whatever? So he's compiled all of that information and kind of put it in one place for us. So you can go and look at that video and you can find out kind of the details of Nationals, and I guess a easy way to take in that information. It's also listed out on Cactus Game Design under tournaments. It's also on the boards. There's a channel on the Discord now for the national tournament. So we've got all of those bases covered. But if you want all that information in one place, Babooni Tim has done a great job putting that together. So definitely go and check that out. And as I guess, the continuation of him progressing towards Nationals, one of the most important decks I think he's put out for especially newer players that maybe are struggling to get over meta decks from other players. He put out a video called How to Beat Matthew Decks. And this is part of his Redemption for Dummies series. And that doesn't mean you're a dummy if you can't beat Matthew, because Matthew is tough.
Yeah.
But it's just part of that series, like that For Dummy series. So it's like a beginner geared content piece. But How to Beat Matthew Decks, and he goes through like the ways that you can try to, stop it from happening, how you can benefit from letting it happen with herdsman package and things. And just, there's a lot of different ways to layer that. So that's a really good video.
And those dummies books are geared from like the beginning, but also to the top techniques too. And that's what he does. He goes through, here's some of the broad strokes you can do against Matthew, but here's some of the smaller, more like things that you wouldn't even consider trying out against Matthew. And he goes through all of those things. This is a really good video. He used a bunch of people to ask for tips on that. He got a bunch of tips together, put them together, and made this really cool video. I'm really proud of that type of stuff he did.
Yeah. And in addition to that, he also has Zoom Tournament Round 3 gameplay. And I believe that's the one with him and Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so much content coming out from Babooni Tim, it's hard to keep it straight. But definitely Zoom Tournament Round 3 gameplay. So you can go and check that out.
I got to apologize to everybody because my wife got back, I got camp, I had VBS, so I'm a little behind on my Redemption media. I got to catch up, but I'm excited. There's a lot of good content to watch, a lot of good stuff to watch. So I'm excited. Like, I'm going through this list. I'm like, oh, I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to watch that. I want to watch that. So
there's a lot of good content right now. So I'll let you take it away with the next content creator, and that's our boy, Mr. Tyler Talks.
Yes, Mr. Hiatus, Tyler Talks. He's got Welcome to Redemption. It's a video geared toward beginners with starter decks. He's got Nativity Meets Hand Control. And the most important one of all, Tyler talked, and she said yes. Congratulations to Tyler. He got engaged this week. Really cool. Really cool. They got to share that with the community. Marriage is an amazing blessing from God, an amazing covenant, and I'm glad that he's on that path like him is. And it's just so cool to see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely congratulations. I guess we can let's find a little bit of hey, we'll just There you go. Congratulations. That's our second clap on the podcast because, like I said, we recorded everything else before this, so you'll get to another clap somewhere in the podcast when you get to it. But anyway, so Tyler went down to, I believe it was Jamaica, and somehow he used that to spoil 12 Jordan Stones, which we'll talk about in the spoiler section. But I really hope that Tyler can find a way to balance it out because I need him to stay his fun-loving self. And I know that marriage is a great blessing and all of the things that go with that. It's a reward from God for being able to go into a covenant with your spouse. And we want to respect all that, but also we still want new cards. So I hope Tyler can strike a balance here.
That's awesome.
But I did put out on Discord after he announced that he was engaged. I was like, well, we've lost him, boys.
He's gone.
So hopefully I was wrong when I said that. So Tyler, just save a little piece of yourself for us, a little piece of your heart. Save it for us. You don't have to give it all away. Save some for us. But anyway, that'll move us to Redemption with Jaden. And Redemption with Jaden has Southeast Regionals recap. So he came down. Obviously, we talked about it on the last episode because I rushed back to record that from Southeast Regionals. But he goes through his experience there. I watched most of that. He did clown me for not being able to win at the Crane game. And it was just too much pressure. I was trying to get it for you, and I crumbled under the pressure. I'm sorry. But he also has a video where it's for his gameplay for round 1 of the Lackey Grand Prix. But he did a little bit of net decking. So it's not just us that do it. Sometimes the dudes in the Redemption game do it. So he net decked, he stole a deck, he borrowed a deck, talked with the creator of that deck, which is Mr. Josh Potratz, Kevin the Dude. And this deck is called Potratz Prison, which is a Nazareth lockdown deck. It's very interesting. I watched the deck overview that Jaden did, and then he got into the game, and then I turned it off when he got into the game, that transition period, and I haven't picked it back up to actually watch the game. But he does a good job explaining the deck, and you get to see kind of the reason for some of the inclusions in it and things. And it's definitely an interesting thing. I thought that we might use it for Deck of the Week, but he did such a good job laying it out and talking about it that it didn't make sense for us to also double dip and talk about it. So we decided to focus on something else and spotlight someone else within the community and just give that room to breathe on Jaden's channel. So definitely go check that out. I think it's a cool deck. Actually watch the gameplay. Don't do like me and turn it off. But that's going to get us past the community content. And now we're going to get ready to unveil something that's brand new.
Yeah.
And this was a suggestion. I didn't think to do this before because I thought we could get away from having to do it. And I thought it would be cool to just have us read, kind of like ad read scripts, like shout out the podcast sponsor, Your Turn Games. I told you there's going to be a lot of them in this, but based on a suggestion that came from Gabe, I did reach out. We had our boy Will, who is that's the name of the guy that does all of our voiceover. He's a pastor in, I believe, San Antonio, Texas, and on the side he does voiceover stuff. So we've worked with him on all of these sound clips and things. It's nice to kind of support our people of our faith and things and be able to bless them in their business. Definitely have enjoyed working with him, but we've got a professional kind of ad for Your Turn Games that we'll use, in conjunction with the podcast moving forward at different times and things. But we're going to go ahead and debut that now so that we can focus on and give a proper shout out to our boy Andy and also his wife Kelsey over at Your Turn Games.
It's going to be awesome, man.
This episode of the Threshing Floor podcast is brought to you by our friends at Your Turn Games. If you are in the market for singles or sealed product, you won't find a better selection anywhere else. They also feature some of the best custom products the game has to offer with their selection of pre-built challenger and contender decks, along with their rotation grab bags. Visit yourturngames.biz for all your redemption gaming needs. Now, back to the episode.
And just to clarify there, I know we're talking about singles and stuff, and we talk about getting married. The singles we're talking about are single cards. It's not actually like
there you go.
Today.
Yeah. Way to tie it back into the existing conversation framework. But that is our fancy new ad. We sound professional with it, promoting Your Turn Games. So we'll use that in conjunction with the podcast at, when it seems appropriate. And we'll also probably still give these awkward, host shout outs for Your Turn Games, which there's a ton of organically in this episode because it just kept coming up. So, hey, there you go. But I would like to spotlight that Your Turn Games. I felt really bad because last week when we recorded the episode, I was in such a rush to get back to record. Andy had sent me a message about, hey, I'm running this pre-order sale on Israel's Inheritance. So if they order by a certain time, they get a $25 gift card and all of that. And I was like, okay, I can definitely include that in the podcast. And then I definitely didn't include it in the podcast. And these are the kind of the fatal flaws that I had with John. And like sometimes I felt like I didn't do a lot to shout him out. So I'm trying to make sure that I do a better job. And so hopefully we can see that my heart is in it to promote your turn games and drive business for them. I dropped the ball last week, so I'm sorry. So to make up for that, we got the ad and we're chilling now, but I do want to let you know that pre-orders are still on sale. The sale is over, so you don't get the gift card anymore, but if you want to pre-order, you can still do that. And you can also pre-order them by booster boxes, so display boxes with 24 packs. You can also get just booster packs, or you can get complete sets, which includes a set of commons, a set of the rares, a set of the ultra rares, or you can get combined just a full set. So there's a lot of different options for you. And if you want to have some of the new cards, but you don't necessarily have the money to splurge on the full set, you could just buy the common set right now, or you could just buy a few packs. Tomato, whatever you want to do, it's there. I will say, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to say anything really, but I know some news about something that's going to happen in the future that's going to be super exciting for Redemption.
Ooh. And
I can't say any more because I have not been given liberty to say anything. But I'm just going to tell you, you're going to want to buy the new set. You're going to want to buy the new set. That's all I can say. So reach out to Andy, pre-order. Once Nationals happens, I believe that Rob's going to bring a supply and he's going to sell it. I could see this being a set where, like, when GOC first came out, or the different phases, where it was a bit of a struggle to get them. Like, we were months behind. We were having to do new print runs to get cards in. I could see a bit of a demand like that. I'm just saying. That's all I'm going to say. But pre-order. And you know where to pre-order, and that's at Your Turn Games.
There's going to be a serialized John Hendricks champion. 1 out of 1. And it's
1 out of 1, baby. I am a 1 of 1.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know that the world could handle 2 of me. But we'll get ready to move into our spoilers here, and we'll just kind of trek through all of the different segments. But I definitely want to thank you guys for jumping into the episode. Hopefully we can put together another good one for you. I know I said we recorded everything else, and now we're kind of doing the news afterwards. So I feel like we kind of might have just jumped into this and went like with lower energy or right into just knocking it out because we're in like grind mode versus the whole opening where it's like organic conversation. So if that felt awkward at the beginning, that's why. So I apologize for that. We'll get better at that maybe. Jake will get better at that, or we'll just have to fire him and get Brad back.
Yes.
I guess we'll move right into spoilers. Thanks for being here.
The following segment contains spoilers that may or may not have been approved by the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. Proceed with caution.
Man, here we are. Another spoiler segment. We can talk about a new card, and I say a new card because that's unfortunately all we got. Okay, Elder Team, you're going to have to throw us some bones, okay?
The Rose's team, they're slacking today.
Yeah. So we do have 12 Jordan Stones, which was shared in part with Tyler sharing that with 2 Bible verses that made no sense together for it. I ended up guessing what it was for the spoiler game, but I didn't get one of the references. But anyway, we've got the full card. We've got what it does. It's an artifact. So we'll go over that one. And then we'll just, since we're a little light on spoilers this week, a little bit I wanted to kind of briefly talk about all that we've seen so far for Israel's Inheritance, II, the SpongeBob set. So we will do that. We'll talk about that briefly. But then I also wanted to talk about Guardian of Your Souls. And I know that this is one that's been out for a little while. Like, we all know about it. We all kind of vaguely know what it does already, but we don't necessarily know the ramifications or impact or how the community is going to pick it up and play it. Like, you know what it does, but you don't know how many people are willing to play that and sacrifice, convert abilities on heroes and things right now. So I just figured we could kind of do a deep dive onto that since we are a little light this week on spoilers. So that's what we're going to be doing here in this segment. But Jake, if you want to take it away, I'll let you read 12 Jordan Stones, and then we'll kind of break it down.
Let's do it. 12 Jordan Stones. Artifact. You may exchange a card from hand with a Joshua card from reserve. And it also says protect hand, deck, and discard pile from opponents. So a really cool take on our hand protect card here.
Yep. So this is going to be kind of like a storehouse for Joshua style decks that are using cards with a Joshua reference. But in trying to compare the two, when I first saw this card, I was like, oh, you can run it along with storehouse. So you're potentially getting to grab two things from your reserve. So it's good speed for those decks that are using cards with those references. I also feel like with 12 Jordan Stones, it doesn't say on here. It doesn't say on here, and it doesn't necessarily, nothing that we've seen so far gives you the indication that you will be able to play it, but I do wonder about whether this is worth your artifact slot. If it doesn't with like the identifier be able to be played somewhere else, if it has to go on the art pile, I just don't know. If you've got Storehouse that kind of does the same thing already and doesn't cost you the artifact pile, I don't know if you play this, so
that's the thing here we got to think about with this card, because we already have 4 Drachma Coin, which is an amazing card, but it's not known for its hand protection, deck protection. 4 Drachma Coin is known for its insane speed on Peter, and I've been talking about this before. Like, if you could stack your deck, you would play every deck with 4 Drachma Coin on Peter, because that card's insane on Peter, because you activate on Peter, you get the draw, it's amazing. Sometimes the hand deck reserve protection on 4 Drachma Coin counts, but mostly it's used for the draw cards. So this has got to be a really good artifact, or you got to be able to put it somewhere, like, you got to be able to put it on something, and it doesn't have an identifier, so it might not have a lot of things to put it on. But if there's a character that says you may activate a Joshua artifact on this guy, this could be good. This effect is really amazing. Like, I do believe that hand deck protection is vital right now. Although there are downside to it, like, this is a really strong effect. So I'm not discounting it, but your artifact slot is very important, and I don't know if you can just keep 12 Jordan Stones there. It also does not protect your reserve, so that's something to note. And it does have the exchange effect, exchange is a little bit worse than the just take effect, right? Because stables, storehouse, they take a card. They don't care, like, they don't need to exchange away anything. So sometimes you're gonna be like, I have cards in my hand I can't give this away. So this card is definitely, it has potential, but I'm a little like, I don't know right now.
It feels mid-level to me, and I don't want to say that in a negative sense. Yeah. Obviously, it's a new card, and we don't know what other cards are going to work with it to where this card maybe feels a little bit better in conjunction with something else, some line of play that you can do with it. But it does feel a little limited to me. Like, it's not one of the first cards I'm going to put into a Joshua deck off the top, just gauging by it from face value. But I do find it interesting, and you can kind of compare the school of thoughts with like LOC when we started getting very specific, grab things from your reserve for specific themes. A lot of it was top deck, and then GOC with the power level going up was like, hey, you can take a card. Like Bethlehem Stable, you can take a card.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily what the one for Samaritans did, but I think it was pretty close to just take, right?
So which card are we talking about for Samaritans?
What is it, Sycar?
Sycar. So yeah, Sycar was the two sides. One lets you grab a Samaritan from deck, and the other one is if a card is reserved, you get to draw one. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah. So it seems like there's different ways to interact with getting these cards for the specific theme. LOC had the like guys where if you top deck, then you could draw one, so they were top decking. GOC with a power level went, oh well, you can just take it, and it seems like now they're falling back down to, oh well, we'll let you exchange a card one for one, a true one for one. Yeah. So it seems like maybe like they're trying to creatively limit the power level of it, but also you don't have to wait to draw it or have to have another piece in play to draw it. With top decking it, you get to just take it, but it's a one for one out of your hand. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like a Joshua card from reserve would have been a lot smaller on the text size. Like I kind of feel like they could have done that. Like it wouldn't have blown my mind to be like, you can take a Joshua card from reserve every turn. Like that
unless there was a broken thing that they found in testing, and they were like, nah, we're not going to. But the exclusion of reserve on it also It makes me think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why is that not on there?
Yeah. And I think that maybe there's a design philosophy change. Like we want to shift away from like Staples Storehouse. You can't touch anything I have. Like, well, Staples and Storehouse, old storehouse do not protect your discard, but usually you don't care about your discard as much, which is kind of relevant with Nazareth protecting discard from Second Coming. But in general, like you're not as you don't usually care about your discard as much. So like maybe they're going with a design philosophy like let's not make this one protection card protect every possible place all at once. I don't know. So definitely interesting to think about.
Okay, well, when you take what we know about Israel's inheritance as a whole, like we haven't seen a ton of spoilers, and there's two sides of me. Like I'm a big guy, I got two sides here that they both want kind of like their cake and eat it too. Like I don't want to be spoiled. I want the surprise of opening the packs and seeing, oh, for the first time, like what is this card? You guys were holding out on us. This card's awesome. But on the other side, like, especially having the podcast here, wanting the content to go over and things, it's like, I want to know what these cards do now. And so I believe the medium has been struck there to where, like, with Israel's Rebellion, we got some stuff. We didn't get all of it. And I think that's kind of the model that they're following here. We're going to get some spoilers. We're not going to get all. I'm totally cool with that. Like, I have no issue with that. It feels like we've seen a lot less of it right now at this stage, because like a lot of what I know from going to Classic Weekend and then Kentucky State, where I saw playtest decks and things. So if I take that and throw it out, and I'm just like the average person listening to the podcast or being involved in the community, we really don't know that much. Like we know a few like design principles that was shared in the articles, and then we have some cards from each theme. But how are you feeling about this set? And be honest, like I think leadership is at a point to where they're okay with us being honest about our expectations, because that's also what they can take back to the drawing board to know what, like how the community's feeling about things and whatnot. And I don't know if I don't want to be like all high and mighty, like our opinion really matters more than anybody else's, because I know it doesn't. It's just we're getting to share it on a medium to where people's going to hear it, and it's going to be like potentially regurgitated a little bit. So in a respectful way, like, what are you thinking about the new set, and where do you think it falls on the power level so far of cards that we've seen? Because it feels like the expectation is that it's bumped up in power level from IR, and I think it eventually will be. But it feels like we're riding that with some of these spoilers to where it's like, they leave a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, currently none of the cards have like absolutely blown me away as far as like that's concerned. Like my expectation is it's going to be somewhere in between IR and GOC, but right now it's kind of feeling like it's close to IR right now. There's that Lost Soul that shuffles the Mobite Soul, which is really strong. Like if Mobites is good, but Mobites has to be good for you to actually use that Soul, and that's the thing. Like that card is insane if the theme is insane. If the theme is not good, you're like, well, I don't want to run a bad defense just to make this Soul like actually active. And like I have a lot of optimism, so I'm like, I think I like Tyler. Tyler's good at design, so I know that he's been tweaking stuff. So I have a lot of faith in what can happen, but I haven't been blown away by all the cards yet. And some of that could be just missing. Maybe I'm not connecting to what they should be doing yet. And sometimes it's just they're missing the other half of the puzzle piece, and you're like, oh, with those two cards together, that makes it a lot stronger, right? Like, yeah, Joseph is not that strong on his own. Like if I just reveal Joseph and be like, okay, like how strong is the Mary? Like, if you're getting the old Mary that like, doesn't do anything, like who cares? But when Joseph connects with Mary, Holy Virgin, like, oh, well, that's a lot stronger, right? Like when you have the cards that fit the theme, it changes everything. So currently, I'm like you're saying, I'm feeling a little bit like, where's the juice? Where's the heavy hitters? Where's the like, dude, that card's insane. I need like that card for sure, and I need a few copies for my Type 2 deck, etc. Like, I'm not seeing those yet, but like, I think we got a lot of time. And like you said, they haven't revealed a ton of cards yet. So, and I think there's a few cards I helped with for their Lackey Trials. I was like, oh, that card is amazing. But that could have been changed too. So I don't know if that's the same anymore. But yeah, man, I'm excited for it. But like right now, I'm looking for some like spicy spoilers. And like, there's some nice spoilers. I just want to see something really spicy.
Yeah. I think that Soul, like you mentioned, that's one of those that gives you the hope that like there's going to be like those powerful cards that are above the average power level of what IR was. And so like you said, like hope is there. Like I have hope that it's going to be a little bit better. And I think again, a little bit of the lack of power for IR was some of the characters lacking modifiers and things and stuff like that. And so we haven't seen enough of II Captain to to know like whether that design principle is carried over or if like we're going to get a little bit more in that direction. And I'm sure there's things that, like you said, like just we don't have the piece or the connect. We have the two dots, but we don't have the dot in the middle that connects them. You know what I mean? Like, so we need to be able to connect the pieces of the puzzle and put it together before we have like some kind of final decision.
Yeah, like we got the square in the side, and that's a little dipper. If you connect the rest of the dots, oh, I see those now. Like I just saw the square. Like why is it? That's not the fun square. Who cares? It's a little dipper.
Which with our held back reservations and things about the set, like wanting to see more, maybe the elders like there is more in there that we're going to be super stoked about. And maybe they'll hear this and they'll be like, look, these guys have no idea. And I hope that's what it is. Yeah. I hope that's what it is. But yeah, like it feels like we need like a huge push for like some kind of like spoiler that really gets everybody excited. I think people got excited with the warrior theme because we got to see a bunch of pieces that are going together.
Yeah.
But you know, like everything else has been like a one-off. Like, how do we know how to judge 12 Jordan Stones? You really don't, except for face value. And in face value, it seems like it's a little weak to other things you could play in that card slot. So I don't know. I'm excited to see. We won't harp on that all night. We do have a little bit of time carved out here to have a conversation about a new dominant in the game. A dominant returning, even though this is in rotation already, but it's one that's like, I don't think a single person has played this in rotation since rotation happened, unless you were playing like Classic to where the old Falling Away was available. That is Guardian of Your Souls. So Guardian of Your Souls is going to be the national participation promo, and then it's going to be the first place winner promo in a different version, so a more fancy version. This card has far-reaching potential based on the ability, especially if people refuse to play around it. Like if you just, I'm going to play my deck and I'm just going to disregard it and somebody plays it, they could lock you down depending on what your deck does. So you hinted at this when we talked about, I believe you said on last episode or somewhere along the lines, you were like, I could talk about Guardian of Your Souls forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I intentionally carved out a little spot here since we were low on spoilers so that after we sit on it for, a month or two or however long it's been out, now it's legal for the Lackey Grand Prix, number 16. So they're testing it there. You can play it there. What kind of impact do you expect this to have at Nationals? Because it is going to be playable in Type 1 and then in teams at least after. I think Jaden asked about Type 2 and I didn't see an answer come through for that. If you were going to be able to play it on day one, since it was potentially going to be given out afterwards. So I don't know if it's going to be in Type 2, but in at least Type 1 in teams, what do you think the expectation or the impact is going to be that we can expect?
Yeah, so I expect to actually see it a few times, but I don't expect it to do well overall. I expect some player, because this card is amazing at doing what it does, it's going to be some people are really going to be wanting to use this because this really does hit some of the biggest cards that people hate in the format, right? Like this hits Soulhide, this hits Matthew. This is a lot of cards that people do not like to lose to. So this card is going to be on people's radar and some people are going to be playing it. I don't think it's going to be a core card of I don't think it's going to be in the decks of maybe no one in the top 8, maybe one person top 8 gets top 8 with this card, but I don't expect to see this card do well at Nats. And it's not because the card's not powerful, it's because the card is very narrow. And that goes against my play philosophy. And just to explain that, when I build my deck, I want to have a deck that is widely strong against most decks in the format. And I don't want a card that is just absolutely dead against a lot of people. And for me, this card can just be absolutely dead against a lot of people. For me, I think I think the one way I would actually play this card is if it actually fit into my strategy naturally. And I think there's one card in the game where you actually want this to help your deck. But otherwise, if it doesn't fit in your strategy naturally, then I'm not playing a card that could just be randomly useless against a lot of decks.
Okay. That's all fair. The one card that you mentioned in the game, is that Father Abraham?
Yeah.
Yeah, Father Abraham, this is designed for that dude.
Yeah.
But do you think, and I feel like I can isolate like 2 or 3 players. You talk about maybe it not being involved in the top 8, top cut. Assuming that top cut is the top 8, like I don't know that that's been specified yet. I mean, that's the way it was ran previously, but I don't believe it's been explicitly laid out. I could have missed that, so don't take that with a grain of salt. If it's in the top 8, it will be piloted by a player that's able to take it and maximize its value with an entire deck built around it.
Yeah, I don't know if you could build a deck around it, but at least still have like.
Okay, well, like you at least build your deck so you don't hurt yourself playing it.
Yes.
So like you don't expect to convert heroes.
Exactly.
Okay. It feels like that's a really technical style, methodical type player. So which players in the field do you isolate and think could really pilot a deck that runs this? If this is the water to wine this year, like you get $100 if you win Nats playing this card.
Yeah.
Who's really trying for that $100 and's got a decent shot?
I could see him, Potrats doing that, like taking it. Jaden, like I don't expect Jaden to do this, but like if you said, could Jaden do this? I think he could. But yeah, like because there's only one card it runs with, I don't see it as gonna happen. But like if you pin me down and say who's gonna do it, if anybody's gonna do really well with this card, who's gonna do it? I'd say it'd be those guys.
I could also see like some kind of like rogue list that Justin Alstead pilots or something. Yeah, I could see that.
And I'm still learning a bunch of the players in the format too. So like I've only have one national under my belt, so I still need to like get used to all the other brewers. So I'm used to Him's brews because Him's always brewing in my backyard. It's always fun. But yeah,
you mentioned that there's one I guess character that's kind of built to interact with this card, and that's Father Abraham, because you get to keep him 12/12. He gets to keep his green side, which is important. He can keep his green side, so he has green brigade while he's in battle, because if you convert him to get the draw 3 and the play and all that, then you lose, and he has blue and red, which is sometimes not as effective as having the green for various things. So obviously there's Genesis lists that can benefit from it. Is there any other decks that you can think of that might benefit from this card?
As far as I know, there's literally no other cards that benefit from forced non-conversion. Like you could already play Matthew as a non-conversion, like him does, Jared does. So like, there's literally no reason for this card to be part of your offense except for Father Abraham, as far as I'm concerned. So then the other question is, what do you play it against? And yeah, like playing against Soulhide, playing against Matthew decks, yeah, that's fairly strong. And I mean, we could talk about that too. But like, as far as I think Father Abraham is literally the only card that this card improves on offense.
Okay, I think that's a pretty accurate school of thought. I think a lot of people believe that is the case, and I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, let me add one thing in there, and I think that's one thing that's important to note is I think Blue's enhancements aren't the strongest right now because they haven't had a good cycle of very strong enhancements. So like, I think Blue likes to play a lot of tossing. So Peace, Goshen, and like if you can have a 12/12 Father Abraham, that's a lot better in a toss battle. That's a lot better in those situations than a 1/1 Father Abraham. Like normally I like 1/1 more than 12/12, but for Blue, I think 12/12 is the better move right there.
That's absolutely fair. But I think because it's a good dominant, I think when we look at this card at face value, we start thinking about what offensive approach is benefited by this card. And I think I think you have to look at this card if you're going to play it as a completely defensive card. I think you can play that version of Father Abraham in blue and force out some benefits on the offensive side. But I think if you're playing this card, you're playing it entirely to add another counter piece that convert strategies have to go through. And so it's a defensive card, even though it's a good dominant. I think that thought process is maybe something that's a little bit harder to handle than just looking at it at face value and taking it. But it's like when you're playing a game and you know someone's playing Matthew, someone's on Matthew, and you get Crowd's Lost Soul down. Crowd's Lost Soul is not going to stop them for the most part.
It can, but like it's
right.
answerable.
It's a friend. It's something that gets answered. So this would be layering something else that has to be answered. But how do you answer this?
And that's the thing. Like this is like the ultimate. Like well, not even the ultimate. It's just you think of this as like a similar to a confusion of mind, but you can play at dominant speed before they get to like attack with Matthew. At the same time, they still can attack with Matthew and reveal a good dominant to get the effect, which probably means they lose that attack because they're going to have a purple Matthew. But if he draws 8 or 9, like that's still not...
Well, if he draws 8 or 9, then you didn't build your deck the right way because, again, it's just a piece. You don't expect it to be a lockdown strategy. But if you have like Crowds, if they have to, before they make their rescue attempt, they have to answer hand protection, and I have to have a way to I have to have a dominant in my hand to be able to not have to convert him. So you're forcing them to just have another hurdle to jump. And I think the players that are already teching for, kind of like the video that Babooni Tim put out, like how to beat Matthew, like you don't beat Matthew with one strategy. You beat Matthew by layering things to where they just have to trek through the mud to get him to be an effective draw engine. If you do nothing turn 0, like you don't have Crowd's Lost Soul, and that's why I like that soul so much more than like John and Tyler when they were on, they weren't as big of a fan of it. I like it because it's something I don't have to put any effort into to create a hurdle for Matthew to go through. You have that. And then you have this, you have a potential storehouse layered on top of it. If you create 3 hurdles that they have to go through to get Matthew to go off, I think Matthew becomes ineffective. I think 2 hurdles, they probably find answers to that a good bit of time. 1 hurdle is like child's play. Like they're laughing at you while they look at your hand and draw.
Yeah.
But I think if you get 3 or more, I think that's where you get into that, like you feel pretty good. And I think this is just a piece because you can play it. And that's the effective thing about it is I can get this in, I can get Crowd's Choice. I could get Second Coming, or I could naturally have it in my opening 8 and I can play it on their turn before they even do anything. And so I can lay that down in turn, not turn 0, but their turn 1 prep or whatever and create a hurdle. There's not a lot of hurdles you can put down for Matthew that don't require you to have an active turn. And so I think that... and the fact that you get the benefit of if you run into a soul high defense or things like that. I don't know. I like it, I think, more than the average person.
Okay.
But I like it because of the fact that it's dominant speed and you can play it without an active turn to create another hurdle. So like I said, you potentially 2 hurdles, you feel okay, but you feel really good with 3. I can put 2 down, this and Crowd's Choice, or not Crowd's Choice, but Crowd's Lost Soul. I can get them down without having an active turn. And that's what I like about it, is that it just becomes another piece that you can get down when your opponent is going and they think they're safe.
And like to do this, it is a strong hoser against Matthew. It's very good against Simon Peter, right? Because he converts to play the Fortress, I believe. Simon the Zealous. You can reveal a dominant for him, but that's on the purple side. And... half of his thing is you want to play a clay enhancement off of him when you attack with him. So like there's a lot of strong disciples that this card is going to target.
You also have the best enhancement they have to play is a CBN Authority of Christ.
On the meek side.
They can't do that with this card.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, you can target this card, and because it is a placed card, and I think a lot of people might not understand this initially with like 3 woes, because the negate is tied to the place and territory. That means everything that comes after it has to end when it's no longer placed. So it's all tied to the place. So this is placed in territory. So if they target it and you put it on top of your deck, it does not continue through the phase. It doesn't do that like fortresses or anything or artifacts. It immediately stops because it's tied to the place, kind of like a territory class character leaving. So that is one thing to keep in mind. But again, they still have to have an answer to get it, to target it, to get it off the board.
And some other notes on that, like this is so strong as David Howard after God. There's a number of really strong heroes this hits. And my problem isn't that it's not good against them. It's that it's a dominant and that there's some decks where it literally does nothing, right? Like you crush some of these disciples, you crush Soulhide, and then you have like Nativity deck, and you're like, oh, this doesn't do anything. It's Nativity deck. And I have a dominant slot that I've devoted to this that doesn't do anything. Like dominants are so strong right now.
Yes. But while you're saying that, from a design standpoint, I think that's good.
No, I'm not saying
because I think a rock, paper, scissors meta to where like you can be really strong against the thing you're worried about, but you become vulnerable here. I think the more we can build decks that is, impenetrable to all things, that's not as good for the game as like I'm really strong here and then I'm vulnerable here. So if I lose to a Nativity in the deck building phase to be stronger against what I think I'm going to play more, and now I have to decide, is Nativity going to be played more than Disciples, or where's the balance? I think those type of decisions in the deck building phase is healthy for the game.
No, I definitely agree. And like I think this is where we're separating card design philosophy and deck building philosophy, because when I like in my deck building, I don't want to play a dominant that is 90 in this matchup and 0 or 10 in this matchup. Like I want a dominant that's going to be 90 in this matchup, 60 in this matchup.
But you want those tools to exist in the game.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm not saying they
that's
should
fair.
play this card. I'm saying like I don't. If anybody's asking me my opinion about playing this card, the only time I tell you should play this card is if you think that, hey, I'm new to the game. I just want to see if I can beat some good players. Like I sleeve up against Jaden and Jaden's playing Disciples and I absolutely crush him with this by accident. Like that's fine. But if you're a good player and you want to try to win the whole thing, I would say don't take this card, because you might run into like 3 or 4 decks where he doesn't do anything. And a dominant that doesn't do anything against 3 or 4 decks over a whole like tournament. That's a no for me, right? Like that's a big no for me, dog.
So when you say that, Mr. Randy Jackson, I just started thinking, and like I started like almost giggling here because you talk about sleeving up against some of these people wanting to play, and we're gonna break the record for mentioning your turn games on this episode. So like this is the most a sponsor of the podcast has ever been mentioned. But imagine the contender decks that just slide that in as like, because a lot of them play at like 5 dominants. Just throw this in, and a lot of them don't have the ultra rare convert to meek to do this benefit. So imagine just throwing that in there, and now it's a tool that those decks have to kind of leverage. And so I mean, I guess it does have a place for leveling out the gap between a high-end deck that's going to play convert characters.
And to be honest, I feel the same about the Fool's deck, because the Fool's deck is so randomly explosive. Like, you could just win if you happen to get full down, you could literally just win on turn 3 with almost nothing they can do. Like there are
because Fools equal tempo because you're able to turn them into souls.
So like, I view this card as high variance, high variance, high power, but also insanely low power.
Really low floor.
Yeah,
really low floor.
And because of that, it's not the card that fits my deck building philosophy of like, let the deck give you the tools to win and you pilot it to the win, as opposed to like, I hope it just go off. I hope my deck goes, woohoo, we win the game. No interaction from my opponent. I got it anyways, like that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So I guess based on that, I think we also kind of covered the next question that I had was kind of like what decks suffer the most. And I know that like Disciples are the one that suffers the most, but then you mentioned the ones that rely on those high impact characters, David Hart after God, Noah potentially.
Noah.
Lazarus is another one because he has to convert to do his thing.
Yeah.
I think like Empty Tomb style, like they have like an upfront ability, but then they're like if blocked from hand. Yeah, like I don't really know how they're worded. If blocked from hand, you may convert this.
So usually it's like, here's Joanna. If blocked from hand, toss the next evil enhancement played in battle. You may convert this card to Meek to draw 2.
Okay, yeah.
Blah, blah, blah,
So it's
blah.
the secondary ability that they don't get. So they still get the main ability potentially for their theme, but that's requiring their fortress to be in play, or for you to block from hand. And the one that they can really kind of guarantee a lot of times is the convert and draw 2.
Yeah, this card is brutal against Empty Tomb. And because they're all white and clay, it kind of this is one thing I really dislike, is like they're white on one side, clay on the other. Like, can't you give me a couple of them are clay white so I can actually use these in white decks? But no, like, if you're building an Empty Tomb deck, you're expecting these guys to be clay when they attack. And if you can't convert them, there are a few Empty Tomb cards that are white, but a lot of them are just, a lot of their good enhancements are clay. So you're like, I can't use the Ascension. I can't, this is really strong against those for sure. So there's a ton of characters that this is good against, but there's also just a ton of decks like Daniel deck. You don't do anything to any of the Daniel characters. Nativity deck, you don't do anything to the Nativity characters. The deck that we'll talk about with the deck tech later, like, none of those characters care about converting to Meek. So if you run into anybody where they're not soul hiding and they're not converting to Meek, you're like, oh, I have a dominant. That is literally nothing. Like, okay.
Okay. So we don't keep spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
I like it, I think, more than you as a card in the meta. I don't think it's like super great, but I think I like it more than you. Mm-hmm. But we both enjoy that it's a tool that's in our deck building toolbox.
Okay. Yeah,
like it's available. And you think right now, put you on the spot. You kind of gave your odds early on, but is it in the top 8 decks? Does somebody make top cut with this card?
I would be surprised to see someone make top 8 with it. I think it's possible, but not likely.
Okay. If you were to turn that question around to me.
Mm-hmm. Do you expect somebody to see this be with us in the top 8?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
And if I start to feel like close to nationals, it's not, I'll make the water to wine offer. So if you win with this in your deck, you get $100.
Hey.
I'm not saying that that's an offer now. I'm just saying just for this. So what would be a friendly wager we could do?
Friendly wager.
Yeah. What's a...
I could shave my head. No, I already.
No, that's crazy. That's crazy. Your wife just got back. You don't want to already make her run away.
I get a tattoo, Guardian of Our Souls, on my forehead. There we go. It'd be amazing.
I think that if it is there, the next tournament, official sanctioned tournament you play in, you have to play that card in your deck.
Okay.
At a, should we say, estates and higher?
Whoa, dude! Wow.
Well, district, you could just throw it into a deck you don't care about. But if you had to play it in a state tournament,
I'm gonna play it in the type 2.
And if it's not in top 8, then I will play it.
Yeah.
Because right now I don't see myself building a deck around playing it personally.
Yeah.
Is that too much? A state
level? I don't know about state level.
Because next year you don't know what the meta is going to look like either.
Yeah. So let's see. We'll figure out something.
Yeah, we'll figure out. If you guys have suggestions on a friendly wager, we can do
friendly
here.
Wager.
He thinks it won't be in the top 8. I think it will. Somebody will make top 8 with it, and we'll go from there. But you guys tell us. Like, I don't know what the line is. Like, we don't want to go like fantasy football wagers because some of those things are out there. You know, you got to like dress up like a cheerleader and like.
Not doing that.
Yeah. like we don't want to go crazy with it, but it would be fun to have some kind of wager, put a little skin in the game.
Yeah.
So you guys hit us with that, and
awesome.
We'll move you on to the next segment here and talk to you about the most recent tournament results.
Let's turn our attention to the most recent tournament results and see where players have stacked up since our last episode.
Yeah, boy.
All right, so we've got tournament results for you, and I will go ahead and put the disclaimer out there that we don't have very much to go on, but I definitely want to keep this section carved out so that we can tell you about the tournament results, because a lot of this is what we're using to give you the updated power rankings, which will follow right after this. But we had a district tournament up in Wisconsin, Then we had the online local, and then we'll kind of talk about the unofficial tournaments that, are constantly happening with the Zoom Discord Invitational hosted by Rob M. And then the Lackey Grand Prix, which is semi-hosted by Jay, but I think a lot of other people have gotten involved and helped with hosting those. And we're always thankful for those people putting in the effort for those. But we'll start here with the district tournament results. You want to take that one away, Mr. Co-host?
Yeah, we got our Type 1 results here. And first, we have James Courtney with Angelic Prophecy. It's Angels and Daniel with Emperors and Chumps, so that sounds pretty fun. Second place, we have Noah Wagon-Necht with GOC Good Stuff and Thieves. And in third place, we have Joshua Putney with Musician, Wilderness, and a Philistines Defense. So sounds like a lot of fun there. Booster results, we got Noah Wagon-Necht again at first place. And second place, we have a tie between James C. and Joshua P. So looking like the same top three there too.
Yeah. So a smaller district, but a district nonetheless. So I definitely wanted to give those guys a shout out. You did great. I don't feel like I have any room to really correct on any names, but I believe Noah Wagon-Necht is the correct pronunciation. I think you got there the first time you said it.
Yeah.
You finally got there, but I just wanted to, hey, that's a
cool name.
Cool name, yes. I was gonna say it's kind of an odd name, but I didn't want to make it sound like a derogatory thing. That's just one of those names that you don't immediately know how to pronounce when you see it.
Yeah.
So, and I think I did pretty well. I probably did terrible now that I'm trying to brag about it, but I don't get a lot of names right, so I thought I'd take a stab for that one.
Is it neck to like night in German, old German or something? I don't know, but I think it's like night.
This isn't 23andMe. I don't know. But we also had an online local that was hosted by Mr. Jay Chambers, Mr. Flooded Red. So he has picked up the torch for those. It was originally Chris Fashman, and then I think Derek Torado started doing that, the former owner of Your Turn Games, which, another shout out for them.
Hey.
They're filling this podcast up, I'm telling you. But he stopped doing that as his business. He started his own private investigation business, and that's gotten busy, and he hadn't been doing them. Someone asked, and he said he wasn't going to be able to continue those. So Jay picked it up, carried the torch, and he's been doing them pretty frequently.
Yeah, I wanted to go to this.
Yeah, this is the last one, I believe, until September, so after Nationals. So they'll take a month off after Nationals and then pick back up. So if you're hearing this, we do have online locals that you can play using real cards over, I guess they do it over Zoom or Discord. But this is an official capacity, so you do get prize support for it, and you do get RNRS points. But we had one this past weekend, and the winner of that was Justin Alstead, which does not, and I say this past weekend, we're recording, I'll break the fourth wall again. We're recording this Sunday night. So this was last weekend. So just so we have the time frame right.
Yeah.
But Justin Alstead won. He came in first, and then second was Zach Gilball.
Nice.
And I reached out to each of those just to kind of get a little bit more insight on what they played. So Justin played his GoldenEye offense, and this is something he's been playing since Classic Weekend. Actually, he was playing it before that, but that's the first time he got really put on the map because he won that 24-person Type 1 event on the Saturday of Classic Weekend. So he was playing that, and he was playing it with a gray good stuff defense instead of the black herdsman defense. So I believe me and you both kind of got caught up in a discussion on Discord. Someone was like, well, what about gray emperors or whatever, gray only defense? And I was like, bro, I haven't seen gray only this season. Yeah. And I haven't. But apparently me and you missed the boat on this one.
I've seen a little bit of gray. It's just, I don't think it's as popular as gray black. I think gray black fits together so well.
Well, I hadn't even seen just straight gray. So I hadn't seen the transition to that. And I've been to a few in-person tournaments, and I've played in the Lackey Grand Prix, so I figured I would be well informed on that, but apparently not. So Justin switched his defense out. It fared pretty well. And obviously he won first place with it. And then Zach, on the other hand, what he was playing I reached out and asked him, and he was playing what he calls his Royal Wedding deck. It aims to leverage the band plus special initiative enhancement. So you got Banner of Love and then David's Proclamation, things that let you kind of like Tenants Kill the Sun, but just the ones on offense. Like, I'm going to do this banding, and then I'm going to put you in SI. And then that gains a bunch of value because you eventually get to add, strong heroes and things like 24 Elders to negate the evil stuff before giving SI to the opponent. So he gave me a little bit of in-depth about that. So that sounds like a cool concept for a deck. And I think he was playing something along that line when he came up to the Michigan State tournament where I saw him.
I believe I played him against that too. It's a good deck for sure.
Yeah. And the defense was just black, gray, good stuff. So I didn't miss the boat on that. Like, he's still playing black, gray, and it's good.
I think he has Esther in that deck, and Esther is really interesting. Wow.
For like the side battle thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So that's the results of the online local. It's just first and second because it's a local. There is no third place. Only first and second get credit for RNRS points and prize support. So that's what we have there. We also have the Zoom Discord Invitational. I believe they're getting ready to start up the 20th series of this. So this is the 20th running of that. So I just wanted to make it a point to say, congratulations to Rob M for that and for, making it 20 series. Like, that's something that when you have 5 or 6 participate, like, you can get down on it and you can let it go. But I think it's a valuable resource for the community. And I really appreciate him keeping that going. So we'll give him some praise here on the podcast. Yeah. There you go, Rob M. Congratulations. Number 20 on the series for the Zoom Discord. And so Series 19 just wrapped up, and we do have final results for that, and I'll let you read those off so you can tell us who's going to be moving up in the power rankings potentially.
Do you hear the ooh ooh ah ah out there? That's Baboony Tim coming in first place with 12 points plus 8 soul differential. This guy is always going crazy with his monkey business. After that, we got, is this Rooted Red? No one knows this guy's name, right? What is this guy's name?
I think what the deal is, like, because he's on other servers, he's changed it on just one server, and it's still pulling his default on other servers. So he's just Flooded, Rooted Red, whatever you want to call him. People know.
Flooded, Rooted, Big Red, whatever. Plus he's got 9 points plus 9 soul differential. After that, we got the Guardian with 8 points plus 3 soul differential, followed by Card Game Fanatic with 7.5 points and 6 soul differential, and Reth with 7 points and 5 soul differential. So good showing from those guys.
Definitely. And I think it's really cool to see Renee right there. Renee or Reth, our friend from Germany. So, hey, that's cool.
He's awesome.
Getting to see him crack in the top 5 there in the finish. So congratulations to those guys. But Booney Tim seems to, like, is it just me, or does it seem like when he's playing with the physical cards, he seems to be on like a big tear? I guess Justin is as well. Like, he's doing really good in-person tournaments. So it's kind of cool to see the ones that do well in paper redemption, if you want to say that. Like, steal it from our friends, Paper Magic or whatever. But paper redemption, like the actual cards, because I feel like you pick up lines of play and things. There's a difference to it than just always playing on Lackey. Not that one is better than the other necessarily for learning the game or learning decks and things, but
I separate paper redemption, Lackey redemption, and even like in-person redemption. Like paper on Zoom is different than paper in person to me too, because on Zoom I'll be like there's a lot of things I want to ask about. I'm like, I don't waste time, forget about it. If it was in person, I just like, can I look at this real quick, and I just grab it and put it back. Like on paper, on Zoom, I'm like, I don't want to.
I think also you don't get to pick up on like the social cues of someone. Exactly. Like, you can tell they're really struggling to make a decision. But on Zoom or whatever, you don't usually see their face a lot unless they've got the second camera or whatever. But a lot of times you just see their hand with their cards, concealed from you. But I think you pick up a lot more. But I think there's layers to it, and there's benefits to each of them, and they all have their place.
No, definitely. I
think like just Baboony Tim going to those in-person tournaments in Arkansas and then also the Northwest Regionals, tearing those things up, winning a lot of the stuff in Arkansas. I think he won everything he played, and then he placed well in everything he played in Northwest. I think Chad still won that one, but it's nice to see, like.
Is this the start of Planet of the Apes? Is like the baboony, like he's getting the mental state growing, and eventually he'll destroy the whole world with his giant mind?
Well, if it ever comes crashing down for him, he could always just circle back to like George of the Jungle. Watch out for that tree. I knew I should have watched out for that tree. But anyway, we also have the Lackey Grand Prix started up, and we've gotten some results from that. So I have not looked in the last couple of days because of just a lot of things I've had going on, being a little bit more busy in my personal life because we had a new nephew show up. So that's kind of forced us to be watching my sister-in-law's kids so she can go and be with my brother-in-law and his wife at the hospital and stuff. So been a little bit busier than I was expecting. So I haven't checked out all of the latest results from the last couple of days. But the Lackey Grand Prix results that I did notice, and I wanted to like make sure I included just because we're going to see these things. Like Jake and I are going to see these. And when we talk about like where we're going to put people in the power rankings, these are some of the things that lead to the thoughts of where people go and things. And I'd rather be upfront and tell you, hey, we saw these results and these are going to influence us versus, hey, we're blindly just giving you this top 10 list. So with that, we got the Guardian defeating Kevin the Dude. So that's Justin Alstead over Josh Potratz.
Yeah.
I was like, Kevin Potratz. That's not right.
Yeah.
What's his?
Exactly.
It took me a second to load Josh.
Yeah, exactly.
But Josh Potratz. And this was a 5-0 game. Now, obviously, 5-0 doesn't always mean like, okay, this player is far and away better than this player. It can just mean like the deck matchups, like we were kind of talking about earlier with Guardian of Your Souls. Like it might make you a matchup and it might break you a matchup. You really don't know what all went into that unless you see the gameplay. But this is a significant result for Justin because he's beating a world-class player. So that's obviously going into it. We also had Luke Marshall defeating Demon Hunter. So that's Luke M., Luke Marshall, and then that is Rob Smith. This was a 5-4 game, but both of these guys are kind of like always on that. Like when they play, they're usually at their fringe, doing well. They usually are better than 500 in Lackey Grand Prix games and things. So
always a threat.
We got that. We got a couple of other results. You wanna take those and.
Yeah, Flooded Red got a wheat over Joe Mama there, 5-1, and Baboony beat See the Tree in a close 5-4. I want to see that video. I saw that video came on my YouTube feed. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to see that video.
Yeah. So you see top players matching up against other top players, and you don't usually always get that with the Lackey Grand Prix, but this Lackey Grand Prix is set up into pods. So you have
the pod people.
Like, I don't know if a lot of intentionality, I know Jaden kind of mentioned that he thought some went into it, but I don't know how intentional they were about putting some beginners with some veteran players in this one and then some beginners with veterans and balancing it out. But because you have smaller groupings for that first round matchup, we got to see a lot of first round matchups with good players on good players. And then second round matchup, the winners rising to the top of those smaller pockets. It feels like you're getting a little bit better quality of games among players. Usually it takes 3-4 rounds in for a big Lackey Grand Prix before you get the top player versus top player type. So that's cool to see. And so these are the results that we're including for the Lackey Grand Prix. So
how are you doing in that tournament? I see you're in there.
I am in there. I won my first game, timeout against Renee. He took me to the wire. He wouldn't let me have it easy. So I ended up getting a timeout win there, and I was supposed to play Luke Marshall. As of the recording of this, I have not played that game. I haven't even talked to him in the last couple of days. So I'm not ghosting him. I think the last thing was he was supposed to let me know when he was done working late Thursday night because we were planning to play Wednesday night, but I forgot. If the timeline is right, I think that's right. I forgot the Celtics were playing. And I was like, nah, the Celtics are my NBA team. So I was like, okay. Although after the last game against the Mavericks, I'm okay with not claiming them for a few days. They need a few days to recover because that was awful. That was the worst playoff game I've ever seen in my life.
Was it like 120 something to 80 something?
122 to 84, and I'm talking about like, dude, it was like the worst playoff game I've ever seen.
Wow. 38
from an
points.
offensive standpoint. So
That's insane.
I'm hoping they don't turn it into a real series and we win in 5, which was my original prediction. But
Yeah.
I won't sidetrack us with sports. I know I have a bad reputation to uphold about doing that, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to be better a little bit because I'll go in these rabbit holes and we'll be there. We'll be holding that rope. But I think I just wanted to include those finishes for the Lackey Grand Prix and also the final results for the Zoom Discord, because those are things that we're going to take into account when we give you the power rankings. So we'll just move right into that. If you're ready for it, Jake.
Sounds good. Let's go.
All right.
And now, it's time to find out where the hottest players in the game stack up in this week's Power Rankings. This is the top 10 redemption players right now, according to us.
According to us.
According
Yes.
to us. I'm never going to get tired of that. That's the coolest intro.
Yeah. I think it's probably our best one. Although
Yeah.
Deck of the Week is cool because
Deck
it's
of the
got the
Week's pretty
built-in sponsor
Yeah.
promotion
We need to talk
there.
about your turn games more.
Yeah, like your turn games. Can we get more of it on this episode? I'm trying to make up for the fact that I dropped the ball on announcing the pre-order sale that was in the works. Like Andy sent me the information before we did the last episode, but it didn't make it into my little half-hearted outline because I had to rush back from that tournament to record. So it just out of sight, out of mind type of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm very apologetic. Andy, I'm sorry. Kelsey, I'm sorry. So we're making it up on this episode. John's sitting at home. He's like, I never got this kind of promotion. I'm sorry, bud. But anyway, we'll go into the power rankings here. We've got them. We've compiled all the data. We shifted some things around. There are some, we'll talk about them a little bit as we come across them, or I'll make sure to make a note, because there is some that you might feel a little out of place, but we definitely feel confident in where we have things.
Yeah.
So we'll get ready, and I'll let you start, Jake.
10.
At number 10, we have Mr. Joe Andretti. It's going to be an awesome time. It's awesome to see here.
Yeah. So he was in the 8th spot last week, and he fell down because and again, he played a top player in Jay, but a 5-1. I mean, we took that into account. But I felt like he definitely still deserved to be on the list. And as we go through this list, Brian, you'll just have to forgive me because I guess we didn't feel that you deserved to be on this list this week. So if you're waiting to hear your name, you're not here, bud.
Not gonna happen.
So we'll get into the next one.
9.
Number 9, we've got the return of the prodigal son, somebody that you expect to be in every top 10 list of players active today, no matter what. We've got the jailer, Mr. Jaden Alstead. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
he reached out and was like, because maybe we bounced some things off and we used Jaden a little bit for the podcast. He's been willing to help us out, kind of just give another opinion on a lot of things and stuff. So when he saw our top 10 list for this week, he was like, how did I get back here? And I didn't really do a good job of taking into account the previous week, our previous episode, but he did fly down and get second place at the Southeast Regionals in Type 1. He got second place in teams, which we only had 2 teams play, but whatever. He got second place in Type 2, which, I mean, is beating Chris something you really take a lot of solace in? I don't know. But I feel like over the last couple of weeks and him playing Potrat's Prison this past week, I feel like he's kind of flipped that switch to where now he's made all the fun decks and things and all the content stuff, but now we're getting close to nationals and it's picked up on the serious nature. And I feel like he's flipped that switch, and I don't know if everybody else has seen it, but I feel like I've seen it. I've seen him turn the light switch on. So
he's been fighting us in his base form this whole time, and then we were like, oh, he's just playing around. Like, oh, now it got serious. Air goes gold, spiky, and it's like, I'm ready to go, boys. Let's go.
yeah. He powered up. So he's Super Saiyan mode now.
He's Super Saiyan mode now. Let's go.
So that's why I felt like it was important to put him on the list here. If you think that comes out of left field, that's kind of the explanation for it there. And here we go. We've got a brand new entry right here for the podcast.
8.
At number 8, we have Jacob A. And we're not talking about Jacob Antonetz. We're talking about Jacob Arrowwood, Red Wing himself. This guy is always a threat, and it's good to see him on this list.
Yep. Again, this is one that is body of work. So he won his first game for this Lackey Grand Prix 5-1 against a newer player. That's not anything to write home about. And that's not a knock on his opponent or anything, but like that's just not enough to like jump you into the power rankings, right? But it's the body of work and how well he did last Lackey Grand Prix and the fact he made top cut and now here he is and he's continuing that on.
So you're telling me you don't write home to your wife when you beat a random little kid 5-1? My dearest love, today I defeated an ROK 5-1. Like, no, you don't write home about
like that old account that Andrew Luck had. Did you ever see that on like Twitter?
I don't know.
He would like write home like it was like Civil War era writings back home. Like I have ran out of like moose oil or something. Like, I am keeping my gun polished for the war that is ahead. It was awesome. But yeah, I don't write home about it, but I am super relieved anytime I beat an RLK. I will say that because the opposite of beating an RLK is you have to write home and tell your wife, I got beat by a 12-year-old playing a contender deck from Your Turn Games. Another mention for Your Turn Games, by the way. But it's a lot easier to say, hey, I beat someone or just let that kind of just fizzle. You don't even have to say it. But when you have to admit you got beat by an RLK with that contender deck, like, I'm just saying. We'll stop clowning and move on.
7.
At number 7, we've got Mr. Chad France, See the Tree, Mr. Land of Redemption himself. And this is a guy that I think all of his big tournaments that he's going to play in are now over with, Oregon State and the Northwest Regionals. I think his presence on the Lackey Grand Prix, whether he's chooses to play in those all the way up to nationals, I don't know what the plan is for that. But I feel like he's somebody that he's had a good body of work this tournament season, but he's one of those people that could kind of fall out of our mind a little bit as we get towards nationals. And this dude is dangerous. This is a dangerous cat in the competitive game. He's got his Soul Surfer deck, which that's a deck that I don't think anybody else can pilot it quite like he can. Like I tried playing it and I was like, I just like I'm okay with it. Like I won half my games, but it's like the certain lines of play and it feels like it's lacking a little bit of presence in a lot of areas. But he's worked that and fine tuned that.
It.
So he doesn't need, I guess, more presence in certain areas because he's got such a defined way to play that deck and things. But I think if you sleep on him now, by the time Nationals gets here, like he could be like a dark horse. I'm just saying.
He could be the boogeyman in your closet underneath your bed. You don't know.
Yeah. Don't look under the bed.
Don't look under the bed.
6.
Cool. At number 6, we have Mr. Hiatus himself, Tyler Stevens. Man, what a good week for this guy.
Yes, a good week for this guy. So he picked up an engagement. He didn't pick up any wins. So he's not playing. I checked, and I don't believe he's in the Lackey Grand Prix this time. So I don't know that we're going to see any more tournament results for him for the foreseeable future. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Love you, Tyler. We wanted to, we thought you were here for right now in this moment. Congratulations on your engagement. We hope you have a wonderful life making redemption cards and somehow carve out enough time for Jess on the side. Yep. Don't get the order wrong. Redemption comes first. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
But I think we're going to see him start to fall off of this list a little bit or fall out of this list because he just doesn't have the opportunity to play games because he's not signed up for the Lackey Grand Prix. Yeah. But we thought you were here. Congratulations. You're going to be like Brian moving forward, so I'm sorry, bud.
Yeah, this is my state, too. I can't play any tournaments. I don't got the time.
5.
All right, at number 5, we've got him, and that's Hymn. I just cannot just say him and let it be because I feel like it's HIM when I say it. Him, the hymnal himself, Jared Strauss, the book of poetic songs of redemption. We've got Mr. Jared Strauss. Obviously, he won the Lackey Grand Prix, the biggest one ever, a few weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, and we featured him on the last episode, titled the episode after him. He was on cloud nine, like he was great. And then what is it like? We moved him down a spot this week, but that's not anything to do with him. HIM this time. That's to do with the fact that like we thought the people ahead of him had done a little bit more to be in that position ahead of him. For this,
how many times have you said him so far?
I don't know. Like I feel like I'm running in circles. Somebody's gonna turn the podcast. I'll be like, this guy doesn't know how to talk.
Don't know how to talk.
But anyway, we'll move into the top 4 here.
4.
At number 4, we have Baboony Tim Estes. Man, I need to ask him what his last
Watch out for that tree.
Watch out for that tree, man. This guy is swinging through the jungle, making a path. He's just blowing it up.
He mentioned on it was the primer video for Nationals I watched this past week. Got around to watching that. And I think he mentioned on there that his original intent when he came to the game and started making videos was to get himself ready to compete at Nationals. And I don't think there's any way that that's not been a successful endeavor for him. Like, I expect him to go and do well and to have a decent showing at Nationals. I'm not saying that he's necessarily going to get top 8. I don't know where he's going to fall into that. We'll make more predictions about that kind of when Nationals gets closer. You and I can, have podcast, predictions and things for Nationals. And I think that'll be fun to do. But just as a blanket thing, I think he has gotten himself absolutely ready to go and rock Nationals.
Definitely. 100% agreed.
3.
All right, number 3, we've got a man that seems to be winning everything he plays these days. Except for
the other day, he crushed me.
Yeah, except for the Zoom Discord where he did not come in first.
Okay,
so there is that. So Baboony Tim actually came in first for that. This guy came in second, I believe. And so we've got the Guardian, Justin Alstead, also won all the Iowa State things. And he's just coming off of winning the online local as well. So all of that, he's one of the top 3 players in the game at the moment. So we've got Justin right here in the 3rd slot.
2.
At number 2, we have Mr. Flooded, Rooted, Big Red himself, Jay Chambers. This guy is awesome. He's always strong, and good to see him at number 2.
Yep, definitely. And I guess the war of the brothers continues because here we go.
1.
We've got Mr. I Am Bread, chicken farmer himself. We've got Jeremy Chambers right here. And I just didn't see any reason that he, from his win at Southeast Regionals, I know it was a small field, but he won that. He came in first for Type 2, which, I mean, the field is small, but he's also beat Jaden, who we expect to threaten for a top 3 position at Nationals in that category. So that stands for something. And he won his first game in the Lackey Grand Prix. I believe it was 5-0.
Yeah.
It was either 5-0 or 5-1 against I'm Null, who is a decent player in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that is enough to keep him, status quo right here in the first slot. And we've got, I know coming up this next weekend, we've got the Tennessee State tournament. So we'll get a chance to see Brian Jones play. So he'll have a chance to crack back into this list. And we'll get to see kind of where Jeremy fits on the list at that time. So we do have things that are going to allow some movement here coming up at least this week. I haven't checked out the other tournaments, but anybody that has tournaments, send over the tournament results. All of those will go into us compiling and picking out the power rankings here.
Our internal algorithms inside our head, they're copyrighted, they're patented, and they're perfect. They don't make mistakes. If you find the top 10 players are right here, and there's no discussing it.
Yeah, no discussion, according to us.
And now, join us as we head into the design lab and brainstorm new card ideas with this week's Ager the Creator.
That's right. He's Ager the creator, and I'm just little old Hendrix. Here we are for another segment of brainstorming new card ideas and things. But before we get into this one, we've got some great news for you because I don't want to spoil it. I want to let you share the news. So you want to share the news about what we've got to look forward on the next segment of Ager the Creator?
Yeah, we got Mr. Tyler Stevens coming over to talk with me. We're going to talk about some card design principles.
Oh, he's just talking with you. Okay, I see.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can sit in the corner, you can listen in. But yeah, he's going to talk with me on some card design principles. We'll laugh at John's simple thoughts, and we'll just be there laughing and having John sit in the corner crying as we talk about some card ideas, rating some card concepts that I have. It's going to be an awesome time.
Yeah. And I think that maybe this is we did it with the deck of the week with Jared on last week. Maybe this is how we incorporate some additional guests into the podcast without it having to be like they're in everything.
Yeah.
So that eventually maybe like if we have a big conversation with somebody, we're not limited to just that conversation being the guest for that week. Maybe we also sprinkle in a guest for one of these random segments. So it's very much kind of a fluid situation about how we incorporate these things. And I thought it was a cool way to get, obviously we've had Tyler on a lot. Like he's been a frequent guest, but he's also one that's easily accessible. He's got a lot of potential free time at various points. That's probably going to dry up a little bit with his engagement now as he, has to go into the planning, the wedding stage. And then, what married life looks like for him, I don't know, but right now he seems to find some free time. So it's nice to be able to capitalize that and use this segment to kind of talk about some design principles and things that, maybe like anything that keeps us from making an outlandish card idea that would never be printed, and more realistic stuff is always good because those are the things that might actually, potentially influence designers and things into a path of thought on how we could create a card. Not that we have far reaching expectations for any of that, but we'll jump right into it. What do you have for us this week?
Yeah. So my first one here is called the reacted character. And one thing I want to note on these things is if I have just this generic name, it's just because the idea for the ability is what came first. Sometimes I'll design something around a character from the Bible, and then I'll be like, oh, this is actually David. This one's actually Ruth. But if I just have a weird name for the card, it's probably just because like I just want to see this ability on a card. You can stick this on somebody, but like this is not really thematic in any sense to me. It's just like I think this would be a cool ability. So my reacted character here, it can be a hero, it can be an evil character. The stats probably be larger, but this ability says if an opponent targets this character, you may play or toss an enhancement, cannot be interrupted. And the cannot be interrupted is really important for that. So the concept for this card is like, especially if this is a big character and they're trying to play a removal card in SI. So you still have to go to SI first before you get the trigger. So you beat their SI with negate. Normally they would still, like if they have small guy versus your big guy, they would still be able to play the next card, right? Like, okay, you negated their card that was putting you in SI, but they can still go again. Now his ability turns on. And because it says it can play or toss an enhancement, you get to throw a CBI toss at this guy. So it's kind of like imagine this on a giant, like, okay, you had your shot at me. I negated it. Now I'm going to throw the spear down your throat. Like, this guy is a threat. CBI means you can prevent this guy, but if you don't prevent this guy, like, you have to
this
be aware.
This guy is threat level midnight.
Exactly. So you just have to be aware of this guy tossing a spear down your throat or something. I don't know.
Okay, I have a couple thoughts about this, and I'm glad that you talked about the SI factor because that does have to play out first. I don't know if play or toss is like, I think it's probably one or the other, and it's probably toss.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I read this, you had a previous card that we talked about, like this guy that's just big and comes in and Mary tries to take him on and he's like, no, I'm just big. And so I win because I'm big. I feel like these are the same guys.
Yeah.
Like this guy's big. Mary comes in, targets him. We work through SI and then I toss her to death.
Yeah.
So I feel like these kind of like design principles for these cards kind of layer and go together. Mm-hmm. So when I read this, I was like, dude, that's the card we talked about last week, just better. So
Well, I think the one that I was talking about last week was an enhancement. And I like the idea of the enhancement that could do that. But yeah, this is a character that does it. So like he's less
Right.
telegraphed. But yeah.
Like just somebody with a presence that, hey, my presence means something. You have to deal with my presence.
Exactly.
And I think that works well. And toss is one of my favorite. Okay, it's not one of my favorite. It is my favorite game mechanic.
Yeah.
Again, I've mentioned that it's a little watered down for me creatively because Herod's Temple and everybody tossing off of that kind of makes it feel.
Yeah, everybody gets to do it. It was special.
It was my thing that I did by abusing the peace thing. That you know what, like, and even before that, like I was using peace with lone characters before it came out that you could ban and things. Like toss is just something I've always enjoyed.
You didn't like sharing your toys as a kid.
Like CBN tossing, I believe it was CBN tossing off of Coliseum. Like that was something that was in an early decks of mine. And so I like toss, and any way you can squeeze toss in a way that it not, like it's telegraphed if you come in and say, hey, boom, I'm going to toss you with Herod's Temple, or I'm going to toss you because of peace. Like they know now they have to have dominant interaction and things. But eventually, dominants dry up, and if you can continue to build layers of tossing to where you can have, like my Nats deck last year, it wasn't a great deck, but it tossed on offense and defense, and it was just all about toss. Like the first guy I played, I forget his name. I'm sorry if you listen to this. Terrible with names, so even if I remembered it, I'd say it wrong. But I played him, and he was like, "Dude, you're just so you." You never let me play my stuff. And I was like, yeah that's kind of the point. That's the way it works. So anytime you can layer toss in a way that's not expected. So like this guy, okay, now you have to deal with him. I can naturally play stuff that I want, or I get to choose, like with peace, you have to toss. But with this guy, I could choose not to toss an enhancement and just play an enhancement, or, if the way you have it worded, you could play or toss. So I think it's kind of cool that it doesn't give them like infinite initiative until they get over your numbers or whatever. Yeah. It's okay, now I can answer you and things. And I think that's really cool about it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
really.
I like this character, or, I mean, I guess character's right. It could be evil character or hero. What you got next?
So we got Pot of Mana Dude. As an evil character, I'm imagining. Like you could do this on a hero, but it's less interesting on a hero, I think. So as an EC, his ability is withdraw all but one character, restrict cards with add to battle, and banned, cannot be interrupted. So again, here I wanted to like those mega bans that come in and they just disrupt everything. Like hopefully you can come in with this guy. I'm noticing here, like it doesn't work against Daniel because Daniel's going to prevent this guy before he comes in, but any other bands that really rely on this type of stuff, this guy can come in, lock everything out, and say, "Hey, we're stuck with a 1v1 battle. If your deck is all about banding, too bad. Like if you didn't prevent this guy, like you're stuck in a 1v1 battle, forcing them to fight with enhancements rather than forcing them to fight with numbers and banding and negates and type stuff." So I thought that would be interesting.
Definitely interesting. I don't think any of your cards come out and they're not interesting at least. But Pot of Mana Dude here, which are all but one restrict cards, and I feel like I know why, but why do you value restrict here versus just negating?
Yeah, and we talked about this before. Modifiers are so important for the game because they let you get through. Like when you negate cards, like CVP breaks through, CBN breaks through. That's so important to understand. Restrict is that thing that does not get broken through. Obviously, you can negate the restrict itself, but you cannot break through with modifiers. Restrict changes the way the game rules function in that time. So that is just a stronger lock than you'll find with negating those cards. Like we have the Lost Soul Forsaken, which negates your opponent's banding abilities, right? But there's so many banding cards that are CBN. There's so many banding cards that are CBP that just break through that. And you're like, why am I even running this soul? But it doesn't actually stop them from doing that. And then we see a card like Pot of Mana, which actually restricts. It doesn't care. Like, yeah, you have a CBN Gabriel. I don't care. Like, you cannot target that guy to bring him in battle because I will not let you bring the card to battle. I'm not negating you. I'm just restricting you.
I didn't know if you specifically put that in there to stop, like, the reactionary resurrection type play. So you restrict. That way it also stops dominance. And obviously we have the starter deck dominance from each that allow you to band to certain types of heroes. And I don't know how much those are going to get played now, but with Prophets coming out, potentially Warriors, I don't know how many can use the references on, like Pillar of Fire and I don't remember the other one. But there's Pillar of Fire, and then there's another one that allows banding, band up to 3. So I didn't know if it was intentionally just to stop dominance. And that's kind of what I assumed.
Yeah, that's the dominance or CBN by nature, so that this getting around that is important too. One thing to note is I said withdraw all but one character. I mean that can be with all draw all but one hero or with all but one evil character. Obviously, if it said literally that, you could just withdraw all of their heroes and say, oh, my character's still in battle. That's fine. CBI. Let's go to the next one up. That would be overpowered. So it's meant to be flipped whatever character.
Yeah, the opposite of whatever you are.
Exactly.
Okay. So I definitely think that one is more suited for an evil character because it feels like a more like kind of out of left field. You kind of get to surprise them a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if obviously restrict is a very strong ability. And if you're stopping add to battle and band through a restrict while having withdraw all but one so that you can choose. So you get to choose like their lowest one based on toughness and things.
Or give them a weird one that they don't want to have in battle.
Yeah. I don't know that the modifier fits here without being over the power level.
Yeah, it might be too strong there. That definitely could be a thing there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you squeeze in a cannot be prevented so that he at least gets to do his thing.
Yeah.
But like probably needs to be toned down and be able to be interacted with to not, I've got a handful of great cards and you just stonewalled me with this guy. That's a complete stonewall.
It might have to be if alone too, because if you could tag this guy in under the big evil character band, that'd be kind of rough too, because it would withdraw all their characters in the restricted. But like, I already banded a bunch in, so that's okay. Like, that would have to be something to watch out for too. But yeah, definitely something I was like, I wanted to see what would happen if you put Pot of Mana on a character.
I think it's a cool design, I guess, experiment. I guess the next step to making some of these cards is there was previously like fan created cards. We might have to get you to like go to like one of the places where you can print cards. Yeah, and print some Ager's design concept cards and pass those out to get a little clout for the podcast. Kind of like the Star Wars set that forever ago came out that someone designed. I wonder how some of your like. I feel like it would be kind of the Wild West of like you got all these like really cool concept ideas, but then when you play them and you're able to layer them, maybe they become a little like I don't know. We'll check with Tyler next week and see if they're too strong. Yeah, I think he's going to say they are.
Honestly, like these ones I'm mentioning today, they're a bit on the more experimental side for sure. Like you can always just build a character that says draw 2 bands to the theme character or something like that. Those are like those are the vanilla. Like they're good for you to have. Like it's good for your set to have those type of cards. But when you try to design something new, you're gonna make some big mistakes. But it's fun. Make some mistakes, learn, see what you can find out.
You got to break eggs to make an omelet. I got you. I guess the next one here is you said experimental. Exactly. Go ahead and hit me with this one.
So this is a negate restrictor character, and it says just restrict cards except characters with negate in their text. So that's
you play a battle winner like. You play a battle winner, interrupt the battle, might get around it, but like negate ain't doing nothing.
Nothing. It's got nothing on this.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's woes because it's restrict.
Exactly.
I'm glad you didn't slap a modifier on this one though.
Well, yeah, like because this is a restrict, they can't even literally play 3 woes. Like this is really interesting. Like it changes the way the game is played in that in that scenario. Like you could say, I have 4 negates in your hand. So you have 4 negates, but none of those are interrupt the battle? Yeah. Well, you're in trouble. Here's my guy. Like, and that's one of the cool things about Redemption is, like, you can say, like, oh, I've got, like, so many good answers to this next attack they have. And they're like, but I have this attack. You're like, oh, I was not planning for that attack. And, like, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to do with this guy.
Depth of strategy allows any scenario to be presented to you.
And the other thing is, maybe this needs to be on a enhancement rather than a character. So you can't just repeat it every turn, like, how many negates you got in your hand? 5? Too bad. I got this guy. Like, just keep on, like, or if this is an evil character, like, just blocking 5 times in a row, like, maybe it needs to be on an enhancement or something that's just one use. because I could see this card being ridiculous otherwise. But the point is, like, let's think differently. Like, you got Amazing Faith. That's nice that you got Amazing Faith, but we're not playing that this
Yeah, we're not letting you play that thing. Okay, so let me hit you with this, because I feel like so far on this segment, like, you've given me your ideas, and I've shared them a little bit and given you thoughts on them. And then, like, it started really last time. Like, I like to try to go down these rabbit trails of, like, thoughts behind them. So I don't want to put us in too much of a rabbit hole here, but what do you think about balancing it? I think the way that originally they tried to balance out strong abilities, I think especially around like Fall of Man, it was heavy. We're going to do Unity. So you get this powerful effect, but it's like you're only getting it if this condition is met.
Exactly.
And I feel like that is too limited. Like, it limits like your creativity when building a deck. And I feel like limit once per game could be a great way to limit it. The problem with that is currently the way the rules work is if you bounce that card or whatever it is, it resets to face value.
No. It all depends on how it's worded. If it says limit once, you can bounce it and reset it. If it's once per game.
Oh, but if it says per game? Okay, cool. What do you think about tying, like, you've got such a simple ability here, and it's a strong ability. So on this last one, restrict cards except characters with negate in their text. So anything with negate is going to be restricted. That's too strong to be able to use multiple times. And even if it's an enhancement, there's lots of ways to get an enhancement back. If it's a character, there's ways to get a character back. What if this strong ability had limit once per game?
And that might be the thing. The only thing about that is I tend not to like limit once per game on characters, because after you use it, like, this guy's just meek now. It's kind of like...
But that's the inherent built-in cost.
Exactly.
That's better than having Unity to where a card will never see play because of
we have one
Unity.
character like this, Jephthah, already, and he does see some occasional play, and like, he's got a strong effect. So, like, you could do this, and I think the reason I didn't put it on there is because, first of all, I probably didn't think about it in time, but also because, like, it's not seen often on characters. But maybe you're right. Like, maybe that could be the good, like, one of the good ways to tune balance rather than forcing Unity on someone.
And see, I'm not opposed to Unity either. I'm just saying, as the designers of the game, so people that are making these legitimate cards, not our, like, fan created ideas. Obviously, this is something that could spill over into the conversation with Tyler next week on this segment, but, like, just the ability to be able to give you powerful effects and balance it in multiple different ways versus we have to slap Unity on it in order to, give you that ability. What if it's just literally once per game, and then
maybe you could, like, stick it, like, do this effect to limit once per game, and then add something at the bottom, like, and draw one card. So, like, it's not literally meek after it's done this one thing. You get the first ability once per game, and then afterwards it's just to draw one card, like, equal character, which is not amazing, but, like, better than literally nothing.
Yeah, definitely better than nothing. But yeah, like, Jephthah, when he sees play, like in Booster Draft, when you used to get, like, the IJ filler cards, like, he would find his way into decks, and you discard the top card of your deck to take out. It's a powerful effect, but it's limit once per game.
And it would hit your Son of God, you'd be like,
Yeah, like, so it's built-in cost, like, and obviously you don't have a cost built in here, but the cost could be, like you said, like, I know you mentioned putting a simple ability afterwards, so it's not just an empty character, but maybe that's the way to balance it out. So, like, you get this powerful effect, but it's limit once per game. And I think the design team having different avenues to balance out these powerful effects, allow the powerful effects to be in the game, but not be so broken, or have such a strong stranglehold on the gameplay of whatever game these abilities are activated to, where it's like, oh, well, you activated that card, that's basically game for me. It's like, okay, well, this is one battle. And I think that's another thing, like, we're starting to see it a little bit. I think the meta this year has really proven that, more so than last year. Last year, I think, like, people were still trying to, like, you needed to win in 3 turns most of your games, or you built your deck to win in 3 turns. And I think now games they're open enough to be able to go 4 or 5 turns without you feeling like you've lost the game because you didn't get a block on their first 2 rescues. That type of thing. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, they might get to 4. They've already played the 2 free ones, and now you have all your resources to block, and they struggle a little bit to get through that potentially, or you feel like you have enough resources to get that block. So I feel like the game is kind of balancing itself out a little bit to where it's not so hyper aggressive. And then dropping in some of these strong abilities could help further balance that game. I mean, I guess the hyper aggressive player could try to manipulate those in their deck as well. So that's something that has to be balanced. But I think limit once per game and Unity being two different avenues to balance out strong abilities is cool. And I guess in theory, at least.
Definitely.
For us amateurs.
I'm thinking about other ways you could do that. Like maybe you could require a card to discard cards from your reserve. Like, what if it said to discard 3 cards from your reserve to restrict cards except characters with negate in their text? And like, once your reserve is out of cards, like you're not getting this effect anymore. Like that would be a really, really interesting way to balance that too.
Yep, that sounds interesting. So either way, next week we'll have Tyler. Will he be Tyler the Creator? Or is he going to get sued by Tyler the Creator for imitating Tyler the Creator?
I'm going to sue him, and then Daniel's going to sue me. It's going to be a suing down the chain thing.
Yeah, as long as I'm innocent.
I got one more to talk about real quick, and it's
yeah. My bad.
No.
It didn't make it on the outline, so I was already skipping over you. Here we go.
So this one I had him in mind. I had all those brewers, Baboony Tim, all the cookers. Cookers. You get the idea. I call this one the Fat Reserve Soul, and it's a Lost Soul, and it says you may reserve the top 7 cards of your deck, and that's not a card that seems immediately good to me. Like you might. Put
I can agree with you.
you might put your second coming in your reserve. Like maybe you get a few more souls out, but like, is that really worth like chunking your deck? I like designing cards that are not immediately strong, immediately like, oh, I know what to do with this, but like it gives the people that cook some materials that like some new spices to deal with. Because think about this, like this empowers your voice from heaven. Like you can be like, I got 17 cards in my reserve, so I can take out all 10 of your cards in reserve or 9 cards, and I can actually get I can pick what I need and don't need from reserve now that I've filled up my reserve with more cards. I know that him was actually running like Bearing Our Sins, Bearing Our Sins with the Star to reserve this card to draw 1. Like he says that he loves that for increasing the size of his reserve to 11, so he gets to do a stronger voice from heaven. I was like, that's an interesting idea. Like, what if you could just chunk a bunch of cards into your reserve? What if you're playing Jerusalem, which is every upkeep you get a New Testament card out of your reserve? Like, it helps you move through your deck a little bit faster in that sense. Like, if you have your Son of God as New Testament, if you have your Second Coming as New Testament, like you just pull stuff out of reserve. Like it's just interesting, and like it doesn't have to be good, but just a tool out there for people to use.
I hear all you're saying, but based on the last discussion for the last idea, you were like, well, maybe we just balance it out by I remove 3 cards in my reserve from the game. You just want to keep using that other ability over and over.
Honestly, like if that's part of the combo, like, and that seems like a fair, like. I might throw my Son of God into reserve. I'll have to find a way to get it out, but like I'm empowering up my cards that need to fuel themselves from reserve.
Yeah,
there's a lot of design space in there.
I think part of that though could lead to like a theme that plays with a fatter reserve and a smaller deck.
Yeah.
So like if you have more cards in your reserve than in your deck, you get this ability.
That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting, but it would also be very vulnerable to a Voice from Heaven taking out your key cards. It would be vulnerable to like somebody playing Herodias after you get all those cards in your reserve. Exactly. Now you can't touch it. So it kind of potentially balances out.
That's the cool thing. Like that push and pull, like this could be really strong, but it could also be very vulnerable. And this makes another deck vulnerable, but this makes this deck strong. Like all those concepts. I like those. It's really spicy.
I do like that as far as like just giving what seems like insignificant abilities out there for potentially opening up design space. Because I think we're getting to a point in rotation to where I don't want to go down another big rabbit trail here, but like it feels like a lot of themes are starting to potentially have elements that are in other themes to where we're borrowing this idea and then putting it here and there. Like the Sons of Jacob having the ability that came out in IR. Or the enhancement, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to negate your card and I'm going to hit your hand. But then Roots had philosophy for gray and white. And so you get some of the same abilities in a bunch of different brigades. And so finding a way to make a playstyle unique for a brigade or a theme I think the design space probably, like, we need to find new ways to turn over that design space. Like, figure out a way to do something unique that hasn't been done. And maybe that starts a thought process for one of the people that are in charge of designing cards, just to have, oh, well, what if you do have a reserve that's bigger than the cards in your deck, or has more cards in your deck?
Yeah.
That could be a powerful ability.
That would be interesting.
And it would balance it out, because you've got to get the cards in your reserve and thin your deck out, which, again, unfortunately, the negative part of that is the hyper aggro players would manipulate that card.
Yeah.
So you'd have to do it in a certain way. Maybe the cards that put a lot of cards in your reserve, so like this soul, would have like the thematic unity on it for, like, you have to be playing this theme to do it that goes with this strategy. Something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely some cool concepts there. And I am looking forward to Tyler joining us next week, because I think a lot of people put out a lot of card ideas. And I know that Daniel, the creator, is working on that, I guess, card designer template thing. And I think once that comes out, we're going to see even more card ideas. And it would be kind of cool to know what is useful for leadership. Like, are any of our ideas useful? And then if they are, what elements of our ideas are useful, so that we can, like, focus on those things.
You know, he's got a fax machine in his office that's labeled Agger's ideas, and like it comes out, prints out, and it goes straight into the garbage can. Like, yeah, great.
Or maybe he's got like an old school Rolodex of all your ideas. And when they say, Tyler, we need 5 new cards for this set, he's like, okay, I like this one. I like this one. I like this one. And then he just adds draw 2, and people's like, hey, that's a great idea.
This is brilliant.
Why didn't you come up with that, Ager?
Draw 2, I missed the secret sauce. Oh, man.
So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully that'll give a little bit more interesting take on this segment for next week. Being able to bring him in and have a conversation with him on that. He was excited about it enough to, like, he was asking us, like, are we not doing anything with this idea of me joining for this? I was like, dude, let us get this episode recorded, and then we'll work on that one, because we're trying to be proactive with the podcast now, to where we plan a few things in advance. Mm-hmm. I know that's shocking, considering, you know, how things have snuck up on us in the past, but we're trying to be better. And so we're working on that for next segment. So hopefully you guys will be interested in that, and we'll be able to have him on and talk kind of the bare bones of card design a little bit. Guess we'll move you right along into this week's Deck of the Week.
This week's Deck of the Week is presented by Your Turn Games. Join us as we take a deeper look at a deck that has sparked our interest and spotlight the mind behind it.
All right, guys, so we are back with a new version of Deck of the Week. This time we were not able to reach out and bring anybody on, so you're just going to get us talking about a deck that we have selected. We kind of put our heads together, and we wanted to pick something that's not a common deck. So we ended up picking a deck that's kind of a lesser played theme right now, and it's going to kind of feel like I forced this, but I did not force this. Actually, there was 2 other people involved in picking Deck of the Week, and this was not my suggestion. I just didn't say no. So why don't you go ahead, Jake, and reveal what deck we're going to be spotlighting here.
Yeah, we got Owen's Patriarch's Thieves hand control deck. This deck was really cool. He posted it on Discord, asked to share some thoughts about it, and Jaden liked it, I liked it. And I'm like, I think this deck has a lot of potential. There's a lot of power in here. I don't think it's fully like fleshed out yet, but like I see a lot of potential in this. And if you can get a few more cards, especially if the new set has some cards that fit into this card, like this deck, you could really go some places. And even now, just like if you fight this deck in a tournament, they could really just mess you up with some of the strong cards in here. So I'm not saying this is fully formed yet. I think it's still got some leveling up to do, but like it's really cool. There's a lot of cool things in here, and Patriarch's Thieves hand control is really fun. I played it once and it was fun to play. Really fun, really exciting. It's focusing on hand control both on the offense and the defense. So we have here a Patriarchs, which is half Patriarchs, half Sons of Jacob Bliss. So they do get bridged together by Jacob, by Abraham, by 3 visitors. They're able to ban from Abraham to grab 3 visitors, grab Jacob to grab a son of Jacob. So like you get this whole chain, and now you've got like Abraham, but now you've gone down to his descendants, the son of Jacob, and the son of Jacob will start pummeling their hands. Or if they don't pummel their hands, they're going to get a bonus. And then they also have the dominant out of their hands, which takes a card out of their hand, right? The good version of Vain Philosophy, which is just like, I remember one of the first things I asked when I came into the game was like, why don't they print a good version of Vain Philosophy? And they're like, that would be broken, bro. And it is broken. It's just limited to one theme. And because you are in Sons of Jacob, you can play this card. This card is really good. Like if you strip out the only evil character they have, if you strip out an important evil dominant from their hand, that is huge for attacking. And you also have the first sacrifice as another way to strip out a card. So the good side is pummeling their hand with Jacob, Sons of Jacob, first sacrifice out of their hands. It's attacking their hands. And then, so we have the evil side, right? That are attacking their hands as well. Thieves. The thieves are the best at doing this. Demon thieves. It's just slight of demons. It's just got Messenger of Satan, Thief, and the Deceiver, which Messenger of Satan is the only just demon in there, right? Like the Deceiver is technically a demon, but he always goes to a thief. But it's using thieves to attack their hand as well. You got the Mocking Thief stripping their deck. You got Repentant Thief hitting their the Condemned Thief hitting their hand. You've got Judas in here. You got all those cool synergies here, and they're attacking their hand as well. So one really cool thing here is that the Highwayman can grab Satan's Seat. I like to call it Stan's Seat because it sounds fun as Stan's Seat. The Highwayman grabs Stan's Seat, and Stan's Seat negates all protection effects, which means he'll negate any staples out, negate any storehouses out, negate any crowds out. He'll prevent any new ones that come down, and that means you get to go to their hand, because that's one of the things, like, I have the first sacrifice. It does not say negate a good card. Like, Teaching Parables can go through a storehouse. First sacrifice can't. So you need a card that'll let you get through that. So you have Stan's Seat there. And it also has an extra bonus effect, too, of, like, if they kill one of your guys, you get to blow up a card in their territory. It's a great card. Like, the only reason I don't love Stan's Seat is because I'm often trying to play my own protect effects, and it kind of gets in the way of my cards. But Stan's Seat, breaking through their hand protection, you start stripping their hand on defense. You start stripping their hand on offense. It's really fun. And Thieves is just a fun defense, too, because it draws a lot for a defense, right? He's got Messenger of Satan and the Highwayman. Those two can be huge draws against anybody with 4 or 5 or 6 good brigades in battle, right? Like, or in their territory. Like, Nativity, that's one of the things I wish I could do with Nativity, is like cut off all these random brigades that are sitting on all these characters, right? I got teal on Zechariah. I've got John, like, I don't want to be purple. I wish there was a John that was white, but like John's in purple. And then we got Gabriel's got the green on him, and Zechariah and Simeon's got the green on him. There's random colors. If I ever have good seed down, help me. Like, I have gold and clay that I don't need sitting in my territory. I could have a ton of brigades out. And if he sees that with a messenger into a Highwayman, and he draws like his whole hand back up, that means he's gassed up to fight me that turn and his next turn. There's a lot of power in this deck. It's just really cool. He also has Destructive Sin, which is that territory class orange enhancement that if you play a good draw ability, he gets to instead. So obviously you don't actually it's if you activate a good draw ability, so you don't want to activate one. Like, if you ever try to activate a good draw ability when Destructive Sin is out, you made a mistake, because the correct thing to do is say, I'm not going to draw, so I don't turn this thing on, because if you try to draw, he draws instead, and you just ruined everything there. So, but there's so many cool things in here. I love a lot of the concepts here, and we've been talking about it. We've been brewing together on his Discord thread. It's been a lot of fun.
I will just say that was awesome to hear you run and take away with that. And everybody expected when it was the blue deck that I was going to be the one talking about it. But it seems like he took a lot of the concepts that Jared tried to capitalize on with his, royalty and taxes deck.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to put those same principles in. And I know that Jared also mentioned that he thought there was a Patriarchs list that could use Thieves and kind of manipulate with using the new Guardian of Your Souls. So I know that he was working towards some blue list or whatnot, but this deck does have some interesting things. I do enjoy, like, and this is one of the things I like the most about the Blue Brigade, is there's so much like dual alignment and crossover with different things. Mm-hmm. And one of the brigades that it crosses over with dual alignment a lot is Crimson. So there's a lot of natural synergy built in and not forced synergy. You can maximize that. You also have the ability to do the peace play. I really like that this list, and I don't know if it was in the original list or if he updated this after you guys started talking about this deck. But the inclusion of Melchizedek in here from Roots.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right?
Like, I love Melchizedek from Roots. If opponent has board advantage, I'm shuffling an evil card in their territory. That's like Mary Light. You know what I mean? Like, I'm shuffling it. I'm not reserving it. So maybe it's a little bit easier for you to get back out. But you also have to sort through multiple cards before you organically draw it potentially. So just getting rid of a card and then can ban to a Genesis human. That's any. But the real ticket on him is the fact that he's Genesis 14, 18, which is Genesis 12 through 24, which means that you can take my boy Abraham, Cloud of Witness Abraham, and then you can ban to him. So you can search him out, you can ban to him, and then he can go to any Genesis. So you can link, and he doesn't have a lot of non-patriarch ban targets in here, but that's a link to potentially take the Genesis offense, have it banned to Jared, have him banned to Jared, who can ban to a Cloud. You could then get into Jeremiah for a toss. You could get into, I don't know, David Heart After God for another search if you wanted to. Just crazy. Different ways you could take that. Yeah. You could ban to, you could have the Patriarch ban. You could come in with Jacob. He could ban to Judah, who could ban to Father Abraham, who could then grab out Melchizedek, ban to him, ban to Noah. And Noah could shuffle a card. Like you could, I guess, technically chain if they have board advantage early on. You could have Father Abraham get Melchizedek to shuffle a card, and then Noah could come in and shuffle another card. So you could have some territory manipulation there. And that's just from the hero lineup. And then you obviously have, like what you mentioned, a bunch of enhancements that are putting pressure on the hand as well. First Sacrifice, you could play the gimmick way to get First Sacrifice back, but also Faith of Abraham getting to play on this big band. You get peace for a turn to hopefully get a rescue that way. There's lots of cool elements built into this. And I think blue is one of those things to where, like, I was super excited when they announced Sons of Jacob in IR, and then I got them and I was like, yeah, Tyler lied to me. I felt like I got bamboozled a little bit on the characters. Not going to lie. It was a little bit of a buzzkill on that, but I did love. They were
too strong in testing, and they had to be toned down.
Yeah,
and they got a little.
I did love a lot of the enhancements that were given, and you just got little tools that Genesis didn't have before, at least in rotation. So I'm cool with that, and then Roots kind of helped offer some other elements. You know, like the Melchizedek we mentioned. You get a couple more enhancements. You get the other two sons of Jacob. Technically, I like the onset of this. I did not load this and try to play any games. I know you played kind of a demo game against your nativity deck.
Yeah.
So you want to just take a few minutes and tell us quickly how that kind of played out?
Yeah, it played out pretty well. I had a good hand for my nativity deck, but I also think I had a good hand for this deck too. So I think both decks started running off pretty well. It ended with me.
The nativity was on the play this one, so I roll 1 through 6 to see which deck goes first, and if it's 4, 5, and 6 is the one I want to go, and if it's 1, 2, 3, it's the deck that I want to go. So my deck did win the game 5-3, but it was a lot closer than that score would suggest. He got some really good draws off of Messenger of Satan, Highwayman. There was a lot of threatening things that happened in this game. I was like, man, that's really interesting. One thing that was really cool to me is that this deck does not draw on offense really, but it doesn't need to because Thieves provides a lot of draw. So the deck does a lot of searching on offense. So you're not really worried about Foreign Wives. You're not really worried about any of those effects that punish you for drawing on your turn, because you're drawing on the defensive side instead. So I thought that was really cool. It played out in some really crazy bands, some really crazy stuff. He's got some cool banding in here with he can do Plunderers to Highwayman to Sapphira. Actually, well, Sapphira would kick out Plunderers, but I could kick out Highwayman. But there's a lot of interesting things you can do with this, and they're really cool. I like we talked about this. He's got Highwayman into Sapphira, and then he can drop a Hypocrisy, because he was running Dissension, but now we switched to Hypocrisy, which is a CVP battle winner. You can balance any number of heroes. So they still have to present a negate through Sapphira's prevent. So it's just really cool, and it turned out to be a really fun game, and I see a lot of potential in this deck. Highwayman himself is really, like, his star is amazing. Like, being able to top deck dominance is really good from hands, and
There's lots. Thieves just has so much potential to do things. It's really crazy. A Thieves hand that really goes off can really bruise you pretty badly.
Yeah, they can take one block opportunity and set the tone for a game
Yeah.
if you have not prepared for facing them. One thing that you mentioned there, you were talking about
Highwayman. He's got good bands. He's got some searching.
when you were talking about that, one thing that like stood out is it's kind of it's a pretty bold move. It's a bold strategy, Cotton,
Yeah.
for him to, you're talking about how he searches on offense and he doesn't draw, which first mistake I saw when I looked at this list was there's no Eliezer. Like, where's my boy at? But
Yeah.
I think we're okay without that in this build. But then you're just like, well, he's trying to search. He's really like limiting himself because if a Nazareth comes down on the other side, I don't know. Like, obviously he's got Satan's seat or stand seat, as you called
Yeah,
it.
he's got stand seat. He's got shipwreck. He's got a
But
number
if
of
he
answers.
doesn't have those things, he can't search to get to them, and he has limited drawing to get down to them. So that is one thing that, like, it's a bold move, and it might work out more than I expect it to, but it's also not having draw on heroes feels like a slight bit of limitation in case an early Nazareth comes out.
There's definitely pros and cons to it for sure.
So I would be interested to see, like, over 10 games, how many times he would be like, man, I wish I had a little bit more drawing on offense.
Yeah. Thieves is actually one of the defenses that breaks out of Nazareth pretty well because, like, if they block with a thief, it can negate the Nazareth, then go search up Highwayman. Highwayman brings in stand seat. Highwayman brings in blah, blah, blah. Like, Thieves has lots of way to kind of disrupt that. And, like, he has his own storehouse, too. So if somehow he doesn't have stand seat down, his own storehouse will prevent, if he has it down first before Nazareth,
Right.
it'll do that. You're right that, like, it is a vulnerability to not have drawing on your heroes against Nazareth, but if you were vulnerable, this is a deck that I'd be okay being vulnerable comparatively because this one has a lot of answers to Nazareth.
Yeah, this one also feels like it's got a little bit more staying power than the average deck to where, like, you got enough defense packed in here, enough utility, enough various elements that people are going to have to, trek through. Like, it's not just going to be a smooth, like, boom, boom, boom game because this deck does pack a lot of answers to a broad range of things with a small package, I guess, because you get to add the elements of the dual alignment things. You get to add, like, the attrition battle of having a piece out there potentially and forcing them to try to toss things or find a way around that for a turn, and just a lot of things that you're going to be able to leverage to get into some situations that aren't really popular for you to see in the current meta. So I think that's cool. And that's kind of one of the reasons that, like, we wanted to focus on this deck. We also want to, like, it's nice to have a deck like Jared's that came through a lot of, like, testing through a Lackey Grand Prix, won a top cut. It's cool to feature decks like that, but it's also cool to feature, like, people that are stepping outside the box and trying to play something that's not, it's kind of like we talked about. It's not something you're seeing all the time, and somebody puts out a deck that's, got room to improve, sure, and it hasn't been tested a lot, okay, but it's a unique thought and take on trying to build something that it's not just picking up and net decking type of thing to where it's like, tweak 2 or 3 cards. It's like, this is a theme that's not seeing a lot of play overall, so it's nice to be able to focus on that.
There's always that advantage of that rogue deck. Like obviously he's sharing this with us, but still, it's not going to be on a lot of people's radar. When people go to nationals, they may not be ready for this type of deck. And if you show up and you've actually put some extra time and you perfect it in a way, like, you might start blowing people out of the water who are not prepared to deal with your deck. They're like, I don't even, like, what type of Sons of Jacob are there? What does this card do? Like, when people aren't prepared for cards, you have that extra percentage value of just, like, surprise of taking them on, and I like that.
Yeah, I think 50% of doing well at nationals is the cards you put into your deck building, and the actual way that the games go. 50% of doing well at nationals is how comfortable you are moving swiftly through your deck. You've seen every scenario, you've done all of that. So a lot of variance at nationals, but I think just putting in time with a deck also gets you there and can lead you to a win in a situation where you might otherwise not win And you might not have the best deck in a matchup, but you maybe know your deck well enough to where you're comfortable playing in kind of a game that feels like not the normal type of game for your deck. And a lot of people are building decks and things, and decks are seeing such compacted matchups. So like, you know what Disciples look like when they go against Nativity, because you've seen that in Lucky Grand Prix and things, but when it goes against something different and you have to figure out how that performs on the fly. Definitely a cool deck for us to look at. And really cool. Hey, I'm not the only blue player, so
yeah,
there we go. So thanks, Owen, for sharing the list. Thanks, Jake, for kind of running point this week on Deck of the Week, doing a lot more of the ins and outs research. And if you guys want to buy the cards, you want to build a deck like this, you know we're going to squeeze in one more. Yes, that's right. You can go and talk to my boy Andy over at Your Turn Games. So this is Deck of the Week sponsored. The podcast is sponsored by it, and this is a presentation, Deck of the Week for Your Turn Games. So go give the man some business, all right? And we'll get ready to move you right along to the next segment.
Now, it's your chance to join the podcast and have your voice heard as we get ready to answer your questions with this week's Community Mailbag.
Yep, that's what it is. It's the Community Mailbag where you get to join the podcast and do a better job at it than we do with your cutting edge questions here. So we'll jump right in and we'll just kind of go over back and forth, kind of like how we normally do. And I'll let you take the first one, Jake, if you want to.
Yeah, this one's from Robar. He's really been active on the Discord recently. And he says, what is a rough outline that someone could use when building their decks, i.e. how many heroes, enhancements, etc.? For me, I got someone showed this to me maybe a year ago or something, but like the rule of 7 sevens. So if you have 7 times 7, that's 49. So you already got 49 cards there.
49 and a hopper, baby.
Exactly. 49 on a hopper. So you get 7 dominance, 7 souls, 7 heroes, 7 enhancements, 7 ECs, 7 evil enhancements. Like, that's not a good way to force your decks to start. But that's a good building place to start your decks off. Generally speaking, you're going to start moving some of those enhancements into characters. But if you're just building a deck and you're like, I don't know where to start getting 7 heroes that fit together, 7 ECs that fit together, 7 enhancements to play on both of them, 7 utility cards, so that's forts, artifacts, those cards sites that don't fit into heroes or enhancements. But I think the 7 sevens is a great way to start building the game, and it also keeps you at 50, which is I think it's a rule that you should try to you don't have to stay literally at 50 all the time, but I think it's a good practice to be in to start focusing on hitting 50 instead of going to 55, 58. You really want to be at 50 99% of the time, I'd say. So I like this rule of 7 sevens plus a hopper.
Yeah, I think those are some good principles to start as a baseline, and then you can kind of work your way from there. I will say on the notion of you should be around 50, you should be at 50 or whatever. And I know that a lot of people share their decks, and we featured him, Jared, HYMN, a couple of weeks ago on the last episode. We featured him, and he's one of those people that likes a little bit of extra cards, extra stuff in their deck. Just it's good cards, it's good value, so I'll run at 53 or 54. That's okay, I don't care. I would say that you should feel confident in your ability as a player before you start building decks that are over 50. If you want to make the choice to go 57, if you want to make the choice to play 54, 53, even 51, I would say that you should approach it, if you really want to get in the groove of building good competitive decks that can handle their own. The best way to do that is to maximize efficiency. If you as a player are not the most efficient, so you don't see lines of play as cleanly and crisply, if you're going to have some room for error with your play, you don't want to also then have your deck be inefficient any more than it has to be. So you want to be as efficient as possible. That's why 49 and a hopper is I'll take it to my grave. 49 and a hopper, even if the hopper doesn't do anything. And there was a discussion this past week on Discord about the effectiveness of hopper. I don't care if it stays in my land of bondage because it's negated. I don't care. What I care is that it's an 8th soul, so it thereby thins my deck because I get to a different card quicker.
Exactly.
And so it has merit on its own. The soul gen portion of it is just a bonus.
Yeah.
there's that. There's also Josh Potratz he's a methodical style player. And so a lot of his things, sometimes decks that he builds can feel a little bit rigid if you look at it with your play style in mind. You're like, I would have to play this a certain way, and you might not like the way that plays. That's fair.
Yeah.
I will say that he has the results to back up his deck building strategies. So there is a video. He has a YouTube channel called Zerubbabel's Temple. It matches the Discord server that he also has. And he hasn't put out a lot of content, but some of that early content really gives you some ins and outs of advanced deck building. It's kind of like dipping your toe into advanced deck building. He talks about like hypergeometric calculators to figure out what's the draw potential of you getting this specific card you need. That's a good video to check out. But I would say using the 7 baseline is a good way to start. I also think that sticking to 50 it might feel like, oh, well, I don't want to cut these cards. If you're never going to get to use those cards because you never get to them and put them in your hand in a moment in time in that game to play them, then it doesn't matter that they were there.
Yeah, I could say, honestly, like if you could stack your deck, you could play 100 cards and it would be fine because you'd actually have stuff to play at the end of the game, but we can't stack our deck. So if by having like 60 cards in the deck, you're like 5 cards away from the Sun I got at the end of the game, that's the killer. Those are the things that kill you is when you don't get to the cards in time. Obviously, in a 50-card deck, sometimes you run out of your cards, but rarely does that happen and you lose the game, right? Like, rarely do you actually use your entire deck and be like, I ran out of stuff to do. Like, sometimes it happens. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. But generally, you're more often going to be saying, I wish I got deeper in my deck than I wish I had more stuff left in my deck.
Yeah. I think another thing, just to be honest and upfront, is if you go into a battle and every battle you have like 3 or 4 things that you can do to try to win that battle, that's too many things to try to do. Like, it feels good to have options. It does. But if you have that means you've got 3 or 4 when you really only need 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Because hopefully you built your deck in a way to where you're maximizing something and putting pressure on the opponent in a certain way to where you don't need all these extra ways. Like, they're going to have to answer your main way and then maybe a backup. Like, I can play this enhancement or I can do this. Like with GOC, for example, a lot of times the backup is I'll do Herod's Temple in a pinch if I have to.
Yep.
You don't have to have Authority of Christ, Untouchable, Love One Another. You don't need all these enhancements at one time in your hand. You need them for strategic battles throughout the game. So you can run fewer battle winners and you can have just make sure you have access to a way to win battles.
Exactly.
You don't need options and trying to, like, this might be getting a little too deep, but like, you need to know what kind of threats you're expected to see. So if you are playing in a local tournament, you kind of know what people are playing. Answer those things. And then if somebody comes with an outlier thing, okay, they got you. They surprised you. But just plan for what you know you're going to see. It's like, you know, a pitcher's bringing the fastball. You sit on fastball, and if he gets you with an off-speed curveball, okay, you tip your hat. Strike 3, I'm done. Good job, bud. But you sit there on the fastball so he doesn't try to blow heat by you. And it's a similar concept, I guess, reading like what you expect to play against and then trying to shore that up before you worry about the outlier things. Robar, I'm sorry, we probably rambled there. I don't know how much of that you can actually use, but
7-7.
if you have any other specific questions, you can definitely reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. And I'll find the link to those videos that I mentioned for Josh Potratz, and I will try to include them in the episode notes here. I know that he's not been able to do newer content, but the few videos that he does have, they are kind of the type of videos that are always relevant, at least until something significant when the game changes. So they're still good to look at and check out. So I guess that will bring us to, all right, our next question is coming from a very active person in the mailbag, Mr. Booster Jones.
Yeah.
That's Brian Jones. He said, if you could add a new category to Redemption, what would it be? And the examples that he mentions are type Northwest, type half, things like that. So I guess he's asking about established things versus a completely brand new thing. Or I guess, I mean, if you've got a brand new thing that you want to suggest.
Refresh my memory here. Like type Northwest, is that the one without
That's
Dominance?
without dominance, and I think you don't play to a set score. It's just the most souls rescued after a time period.
Yeah, I like that. Like, I would actually keep dominance. I would just take out the salvation dominance. And I call it salvation dominance. Well, basically, Son of God. Like, so without Son of God, TSC is grabbing another dominant to use again, which is not as crazy as grabbing Son of God. So, like, you take out Son of God, you take out Chariot of Fire, and then let's see like games actually. Sometimes in Redemption, you're like, okay, the first turn I didn't have an evil character because I had a bad hand. Like, and obviously in Redemption, sometimes you'll just draw all of your heroes. Sometimes you'll just draw all of your evil characters. Obviously, you build souls, and hopefully the souls will fix those things for you. But sometimes they don't. So, like sometimes in modern Type 1 Redemptions, like I didn't have an evil character in my first one. They had an Angel of the Lord for my second one, and they had a Glory for my third one, and then they just rescued the last two with Son of God and Second Coming. Sometimes that can feel like I didn't have enough time to actually set up. I didn't have enough time to get the game going. So I like the idea of like no dominant rescues. Let's make this game actually develop. Gives players time for their deck to actually turn on. Because sometimes you can feel like the game's over. I didn't even get a chance to play. And that's always a horrible feeling. So I like the idea of that. Type half is like the 25 card deck, right? And the 5 card reserve or something.
I don't know about reserve size, but it is specifically, I think, around 25 cards.
I think I remember not loving it.
Yeah, I think my first nationals in Texas, I won. They called it Raid, and I think Raid was kind of built off of the bare bones of. Yes. I think it was built off the bare bones of Type Half.
Yeah. Okay. Raid is where they split apart the starter decks too, right? Like, and then they gave it was for kids, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was what the kids play at camp and at powwows and things.
Which is a really cool idea, but it's not. It doesn't appeal to me on a strategic level as much.
There's no real depth of strategy. It's just to get quick casual games in, which as a casual format, it's great. So this is what I feel. I don't want this segment to take forever, but I do want to be thorough here because let's analyze and look at Type 2. And I'm not knocking guys that enjoy Type 2. Do you enjoy Type 2?
Honestly, like it's growing on me. The thing is, there's not really a chance to play it in a physical. I don't have all the cards I want to fully. Like I can make a Type 2 deck now. Like a few years ago, I couldn't even build a Type 2 deck. I didn't have 14 good dominants.
Right.
So
there's barrier to entry because of that.
A higher barrier to entry for sure.
And there's also barrier to entry just from the availability of play. You have to find somebody else that also has a collection big enough to build it.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about just building a deck. You're not saying to have options and build a good deck. And I think each year, like there is interest in Type 2, but it feels like interest is like limited. It's not growing at a great rate. I do know that like in the Northwest, Chad mentioned that some of his students have kind of gotten into it, even though he doesn't play Type 2, which is cool to see. I would love for that format to grow. I'm not a big fan of it because I did give it a try. And I ended up having to play Jeremy, and I was like, dude, there's no point. 2-time defending champ. He built the deck he gave me, so
he's bread, but you're toast.
Yeah, I haven't had a good experience with it, but also like the deck building rules and things, there's barrier to the enjoyment of that format.
Yeah.
So there's that. We lost multi. I'm hoping that Teams has a bit of a resurgence because I think with no intro prep and things, like if we can streamline that format, I think that's a fun format. I enjoy Teams. I can see the look on your face. You probably don't enjoy Teams, but you also haven't played it without intro prep yet.
Yeah, right? I know, but
I enjoy it if you didn't have to sit there and think about dominance and souls. Like maybe you play Teams and you get rid of the rescue dominance, and then who cares if each teammate has undesirables?
Yeah.
Like if I'm an idiot and I walk into undesirables twice, that's my fault. Like I deserve to lose the game.
That's awesome.
Like they get too dark. If the soul's only triggered for the active player versus them sharing the souls, I think that right there, and they could play the same soul, but each only get to trigger at one time. Like when they draw it and when it's in their land of bondage, I think you immediately eliminate some of the barrier to entry for that format. And I think when Brian's asking about new formats to play, like I start analyzing the formats that we already have, and it's like each of them seem to have some like a little bit of barrier to entry. Now, I hate to keep using that phrase, but like I think if we bring in a new format, it has to absolutely be streamlined to where it's like it rolls smooth. There is no there should be no janky rules that is just for this format and it doesn't apply to the full global game of Redemption. Like, we need global rules that apply globally to this, and formats can have different deck building rules, but they need to be easy to understand. Two people show up randomly to a tournament and they're like, hey, we want to play teams. Well, did you bring a bunch of extra dominants and souls with you? And they're like, no. Okay, well, you're going to have to borrow some or...
Yeah, exactly. Pull out your starter deck and throw all those starter deck souls in there.
Yeah, if they only had to replace the Son of God and and if they were playing Chariot of Fire, like, you can leave Second Coming in your decks. Okay. Like, I would almost enjoy the chance to test out, like, getting rid of rescue dominance and then players can use the same dominance. It would be kind of like Crossfire Frenzy because everybody would have access to all these cool abilities. But does that make the game more fun?
I think so.
Fun.
Yeah.
I think so. So when Brian talks about this, I am super interested in Type Northwest.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of maybe it's just the scoring. Like, we're going to have drop time at 30 minutes, whoever's got the most souls. You could technically shorten the games of Redemption down. And it also, because the opponent is not having to, they don't get the benefit of being able to look at a clock and know how long they have to hold you.
Yeah.
So it feels like it would make it a more open battle experience. Like, we're just going into these battles and it doesn't matter you got your Son of God and Second Coming first, like in type whatever. You wouldn't even have that problem because you don't have the dominance. It doesn't matter that you got your Authority of Christ Rescue, like the things that make you tremble almost on the other side of a Type 1 table right now. The quick rescue and then, oh man, they just got Eternal Inheritance out of their reserve. You're sweating. You're like,
exactly.
You take away a lot of that pressure because it's not to 5.
Yeah.
The race is like, sure, there's a clock, but it's whoever has the most soul. You win 1-0. Hey, bud, you did it. So defensive heavy becomes a realistic option.
I kind of like the Type 2's balanced deck rules. Like, I know it adds an extra pain to it, but like, I think that's really good to prevent like D heavy from like kind of wrecking everything in these random formats. Like, I think balance is a really good way. I think balance is a really fun way to play Redemption myself. Like, I like balanced decks where you have like, I got some evil cards, I got some good cards. I'm not just trying to race you. Like, I also want to stop you too. So I like that.
I really do think that Type Northwest excites me, the prospects of potentially playing that. And in the past, we've tried to have Stamp on, who is one of the, I guess, like founding fathers of that format, so to speak. I think it would still be cool to try to eventually have him on to talk about that so that people don't just hear Type Northwest as an abstract, like this is a fan-made format, but actually this is the format that we could play. I would be open to that one, but that's the only one that I know exists that I like think makes sense as an official format potentially. But again, you have to do it. I think any new format has to come in with streamlined rules, clean, clear ability to understand how it plays. And we cannot have anything that has any extra barriers to being able to jump in and play. Yeah. I think people need to be able to show up, play the game, and do that as simply as possible. And I think that's kind of why multiplayer kind of went away. Like, there was some people, obviously there's a love-hate relationship with a lot of experiences with multiplayer.
Don't let friends play multiplayer.
Right. But a brand new player coming in, like, they don't understand how it plays.
Yeah.
And there's really no way to understand unless somebody gets mad at you because you played it wrong. You block turn 1. Oh my goodness. You are the scorn of Redemption. Like, but players come in, I play Type 1. I know I'm blocking every time because I can't let them get to 5.
Yeah.
And then you get mad, like veteran players. Like, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for how they might have handled new players in multiplayer, but it was just not a fun experience for new players to come into. Eventually, you ended up with a bunch of stalwarts that enjoyed the format and nothing else, and now we don't have that format as an official category. But I would like to see some type of additional format or something for people to engage with the game in a new way. And I think another thing, and this is, again, I don't know if Type Half fits into that. I would like to see some format with constructed decks that lean a little bit more toward casual.
Yeah.
so that it's not like just we got these 8 to 10 players that are super competitive and they're always going to, jut around at the top.
We just got to figure out how to do Commander and Redemption.
Well, I heard a rumor. I'm not going to say it. But I heard a rumor, and that's all I'm going to say. And we're going to move on to the next question.
So this one's from Mark Valake, and excuse me, he's all caps here. Are you ready for the 30th annual Nats?
Nationals!
Nationals! Step into the Nationals.
My first trip to Nationals to Texas, I was driving my car, and Jeremy was riding with me, and we had all the windows down going down the interstate, hair blowing in the wind, music blaring, and we were just, Nationals! We were rocking it like Night at the Roxbury. Like we were excited to go, man.
Yeah.
But yes, Mark, I am super excited for Nationals. I don't know about Jake over here, but I'm excited.
Yeah. I don't have my tickets yet, so I gotta make some financial moves and see what everything's going. But hopefully I'll be there. Like I feel like 90% I'll be there, but I'm not 100% yet. So I once I get those tickets, then I can be stoked to go.
You need to just let us know what we need to do to bridge the 10% gap. See, and that's why we had to let Brad go, because he wasn't going to Nationals. So now if you don't go to Nationals, we're going to have to replace you.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I'm totally just kidding.
I get. No, it's serious. This is serious.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I will say I'm excited for it, and I believe that like there's key people that are excited for it. Like I think Mark's super excited for it.
Yeah.
I think some people that like Babooni Tim going to his first Nationals in forever. I don't know if he actually went back when he played.
Does he want to go to Nationals? I've never. Is he interested in Nationals at all? I don't know if he is.
Yeah, I don't know if his whole channel's dedicated to it. But can I be honest with the people out there?
This is a no honesty zone.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to break the rules, but
oh man,
it feels a little bit flat from the past couple Nationals. And I don't know what the reason is for that, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm trying to do my part with the podcast, getting it back up, routine episodes out on schedule. And I think that this Nationals has the potential to be one of the best Nationals ever. It's the 30th. It's being billed as the 30th. I'll say that because there's some people that there's some controversy that it might be the 29th, but it's being billed as the 30th. Okay, 30th National. And like, I want to be super excited about that and see everybody else be excited about that. And I am super excited, but it just feels like the community is kind of like, they're kind of like you. They're sitting at that like 90% mark and they're just not ready to get super excited about it. And I don't know what it is that's going to push us there, but whatever it is, whatever I can do, I'm willing to do it. But like, I feel like the excitement needs a jolt of energy, if that makes sense. Like, we need to refuel the hype train for it, so to speak. So I am super ready, Mark. And I don't know what we got to do to get these bums excited, but
I'm stoked. I want to be there for sure. Like, I loved it, and I want to go back. And it's gonna be so awesome to be there. But I'm praying that God lets me go, and I'm excited to go. But yeah, we need to get the hype jumping. We need to get the hype.
Do you
pumping.
feel like? Have you read kind of what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like
I think
that?
I can see that. I do think, like you said, like this could be one of the best ones because we've seen an influx of players who care about like growing and build. Like, I think this is like you said, the biggest LGP this year. Like, I think there's a hunger for competitiveness that I've not seen since I've been here. Like, it's mounting, but I think the hype could use like a shot, an injection of like, hey, it's almost here. Let's get ready. Let's get going. That type of thing.
I don't know if you guys got anything out there that we can do to spark the excitement for it. Let me know. I'm all ears. Let's do it. If we need to make Jay do something crazy, like,
National Red. I don't know.
I don't know. But yes, I'm excited and I am looking forward to Nationals. Pre-registration form is available. You get a bonus for signing up. Dude, just fill out the form. Just do it. Like, if you're listening to this podcast and the question is, am I excited? Bro, are you excited?
Oh,
then get your butt to your computer, go to that Google form, and you fill it out, and we'll see you in Michigan.
Wow. Is that easy?
It's that easy.
Man.
All right, the next question we've got from, I guess this is Tim's brother.
Yeah, must be.
Babooni Jim.
Yeah.
Babooni Jim says, what's one thing that you are glad exists within Redemption? And what's one thing you wish existed in Redemption? And this is he mentioned that this is a very open-ended question. So I guess we can take it any direction we want.
So I'll start off. One thing I'm glad that exists in Redemption. This was something that I was one of the people pushing for, the 1 TC rule. I came into Redemption 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, and the first real deck I played was
the Wild Wild West then.
Exactly. The first real deck I played was him's real deck. And his deck. And he was like, I'm gonna do Emmaus Road, blah, 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 like a bunch of other TC. I'm gonna play another Emmaus Road. Like, wait, you got the card back? You played it again the same turn? He's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. He played his first turn out for like 20 minutes, I felt like. Maybe it was 15, maybe it was 10, but it was a ton of time. I was like, Can I play Redemption? I have a few enhancements I'd like to cast in battle. And like, no, I'm gonna keep on doing this. I'm gonna take the cards out of your hand. Blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, back in the day, you didn't play your enhancements in battle.
Exactly. I was like, come on. Like I thought, like, because I came from an era where like, well, back then it was just more about the numbers on the cards. But even then, like, you got to play enhancements in battle, and I'm just sitting there, and he's like, doop 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 doop. I'm like, oh, come on. So like, I was like, we got to figure out a rule to do this. There's tons of different like people like different ideas. My idea was a little bit different, but the point was somebody's like, hey, let's just do 1 TC per turn. I was like, yeah, that works out really well. And like, it got implemented and it worked really well. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. It changed the pace of the game. Like, it's still very active outside of battle. Like, Redemption's still very active outside of battle, but it's shifted it to where it's like 60% outside of battle, 40% inside battle, as opposed to like 90% outside of battle, 10% in battle. That's what I feel like if I had to give a guess on what the change has been from that, and I love it.
Okay, let me piggyback off that, because I will say I am glad that exists in Redemption as well, but not just at face value that it's better for gameplay. Mm-hmm. I feel like the community didn't mean it necessarily in this way, but I felt like, especially doing the podcast and having, like, I fed into it as well. Obviously, it was a big point of emphasis for the game was like people talking about the broken state of the game and how we could fix it and improve it. And everybody had their own idea. And it just, if there was a little period there where it just felt like it was hard to be excited about Redemption because everybody was talking about the negative of Redemption. Obviously, it's something that needed to be fixed, but it also kind of eats at you a little bit because you're constantly just dwelling on the one bugaboo of the game at the moment. Obviously, the game's got other bugaboos and things that need to be improved and have been improved over time and things. But like, there was this one it was like this dark cloud hanging over any time you went to a tournament, people were talking about how do we fix it? And I feel like we've slightly moved away from that. People are talking about different cool things that we can do. And it feels like we've almost flipped over to where now it's excitement of like, what are we going to do for like the hype factor of like building up the game versus how are we going to fix this problem with the game? And I am super glad that we have moved to that part of it, or towards that end of the spectrum versus the, hey, dwelling on what's wrong. As far as something that I am glad that exists in Redemption, besides that, like my own take, I would say, and this might be a cop-out thing, but I am glad that there's an emphasis in Redemption, and it seems to be laid into every fabric of what the leadership team is trying to do now, that's geared towards and more of an emphasis. Because when I first came in, I felt like I was this new fish in a big fish bowl, but like the other fish didn't necessarily, they weren't trying to actively push me to be a better player or to be more excited about the game and things. And I'm not trying to down anybody, but over the last 2 years, like there's an emphasis built on the new player experience or the returning player experience. And I think we're starting to bear the fruit of the work that we've done to make that the emphasis. Like we have new players returning to the game that have been away. So I guess not technically new players, but returning players. And then we have new players brand new to the game. And everything about Redemption seems to be focused, or at least keeping in mind, the new player experience. And I think that to get everybody on board with that, from the super competitive, like what it was when I came in 2019, it seemed like there was the good players and then the middle of the pack and then the actively bad players. And like you just had to come in and figure out which group you fit in. And there wasn't a lot of like we talk about deck sharing. People needing to, are we wanting to see more decks being shared? But the comparison for now versus way back when I first came into the game, night and day, like it is so much vastly improved. And I think just keeping that emphasis and thinking about the new player and everything that we do is actually one of the best things that I've seen happen for Redemption since I've been involved. So that's something that I'm glad everybody has bought in and kind of gotten on the same page with. So I'm excited that that exists in Redemption. So what is one thing, Jake, that you would like to see in Redemption that is not currently here?
And I might be wasting this because like this is I don't know if it's even reasonable, but like the first thing that comes to my mind that I wish existed for Redemption is a fully like automated rules like enforced app like for the game to be played on mobile.
I figured you were going to
like
go
that
there.
would be so like I so often I'll be like out on the walking the dog just playing some Magic right before like while I'm walking the dog like. And let's fun. Like if there was Redemption I could be playing on mobile, like that would be so cool. I don't like it seems like a pipe dream. It seems too far to happen, but like that would be so cool. Like
Well, even if it was codified as a beginner tool for the newest starter decks and like only the interactions in the starter decks were in this app, this
That would help
teaching
a ton.
app, definitely see that being a plausible thing. I don't know about the full open world of any card interaction and having that keyed in to where it automatically reads the interaction and knows what to do. But
or they could just build specific like Arena doesn't have all the cards of Magic on it. It has like a certain percentage, and they don't even use some of the cards that they can't really afford to put on there. Like I can't fit this in the rules of the game. Like if they said like we're going to develop Roots 2, and Roots 2 it will be in the starter decks will be on this app, and it's going to be a limited set of Redemption, but it will be a Redemption. You get to build your deck with all the Roots cards. You get to build a deck with the starter decks. Like that'd be really cool. Like I would just love to have something to play Redemption mobily without having like you really can't play Lackey mobily. I mean, you can on your laptop, but like you can't do it while you're walking around. Like you can't just do that. Like you got to be sitting down. You got to have your mouse out and everything.
I definitely understand the merit of that desire for the game, and I think it's there for a lot of people, and I absolutely think we would benefit from something like that. But I'll take it kind of the same coin, but flip it over. I have wanted this since, honestly, when I first got into the game, like, and I researched everything, and I looked up all of the different, like, official things that you could find for the game. I found Land of Redemption. I found the boards, all of that. I long so much for a Cactus official landing page to where it's Redemption. I don't know. Are we a trading card game? Are we a CCG? I see it as a trading card game, so I use the phrase Redemption TCG. But either way, Redemption, TCG, CCG, whatever it is, .com. That's where you go, and it brings up. I love our guys at Land of Redemption, Chad and Babooni Tim and Chaz Maney, and when they are able to keep that content flowing and stuff, it's nice to have all that in a packaged resource. But it's held back for the fact that if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a disclaimer that says this is a fan site. We need the ownership of Redemption. What would be really cool, and I don't want to knock what we have for Cactus, because he's got what he's got and he's making it work. But I think we would benefit so much from a community and a game if there was an awesome landing page to where it's like redemption.com, whatever, and that's Cactus official, and you could see the active tournaments updated to basically the minute. Like when tournament results go in, like you see the RNRS results, but like you never see the actual results posted. Like we like to share them here and we get them from tournament hosts and things, but to know how Alabama State finished, like all the results, like you can go look at RNRS points and kind of figure it out, but where's a like posted listing of these are the official results for Alabama State, and then Alabama State all the way back, 2 years ago if you wanted to go. Like it'd be cool to have all that compiled, to have information about the new set, all of the different documents and things held there in an official capacity, and just the ownership of Redemption being on the forefront of the media, I guess, element of the game. Because it feels like Cactus, the website, yeah, it's an afterthought because there's so many better resources you can go to, and it shouldn't be that way. And I know that maybe that's held back from Rob not having help or not being able to afford to have help to key those things in up to the minute, but like a pipe dream thing, that would be something I want to see. Like I want to type in redemption and go right there. And I think that would benefit the game so much.
Sounds good. We got this one here from Benjamin Hole. Is there any backstory to why John is so biased to the Blue Brigade?
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if John is biased to the Blue Brigade.
I think he is.
Do I like it? Yes. Have I played it in a tournament this season? No, I have not. So biased, yes, sure, I'll take it. But I'm not so biased to where I like bang my head against the wall constantly. Like I can acknowledge that other decks are better suited for the current meta. But I will say that I have played blue in every nationals I've been to so far.
Nice.
Which I barely missed top cut at my first nationals, and then I made a last minute change to actually play in Iowa 2 years ago. I was planning to, I guess when I loaded up to go to nationals, I had the idea that I was not, and I was just going to focus on trying to get some interviews and things with the podcast recording software that I took up, our hardware. And I ended up changing my mind and deciding to play. I got talked into it, and that was more of a casual thing. Not saying that I would have done better had I been competitively trying, but this past year I made top 8. I was the 8th player that placed, so I did okay playing blue. So I found ways to make it, I guess, competitive, I feel like. But the reason that I really like Blue Brigade, well, first of all, blue's a great color. It's hard to argue with that. So start right there. Also, what's one of the coolest books of the Bible? Genesis. Like, it's got all those cool stories that you grew up Sunday school learning about. Like, you got Adam and Eve, that story. You got this wicked snake that's like, hey, eat this fruit, lady. And she's like, yeah, Adam, don't be a punk. Eat this fruit. Yeah. And then you got Cain killing Abel, the first murder in the record of human history. And then you've got Noah. The wickedness abounds. And then, obviously Noah, hey, I'm going to build this boat. Hey, Noah, you're an idiot. Yeah, okay. So you got all these cool stories that just come to life. Then you've got, I guess I've skipped over like Abraham. Well, I guess it didn't skip over. It would be the next chronological thing. But you've got Abraham. You've got the intricate, like, I found Eliezer of Damascus and made a card out of it. Dude, I didn't even know that guy was in the Bible, if I'm going to be honest. Like, he's such an afterthought. But, like, there's cool things. You've got Isaac, and you got the Jacob, like, just that whole line carried out. And you've got sons of Jacob. You've got the where they got into Egypt before they had to have the Exodus because of, hey, there's going to be this famine and all this. And there's so much depth of, like, storytelling right there at the beginning. I love all those stories. I do. And then on top of that, my first deck that I built when I came into the game, 2019, one of the most popular decks at Nationals. It didn't win, but it placed in the top, I guess, top 8, a couple of different spots, was the Flood deck. And so it was kind of the best of both worlds. A lot of people, when they come into a game, they want to play something that's good, but they don't want to play like what everybody's playing to where it's like, oh man, this is the deck that just won, so everybody's on it. So I was able to find kind of a happy medium with Flood. I built a Flood deck. And the first time that I met Jay and Jeremy, like, Jay reached out to me and he's like, hey, you in Alabama? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, you want to get together and play some games? I was like, sure. So I met these guys in, September of 2019. And Nationals had just happened. I was like, dude, I missed it. What? And it was just in Knoxville, 6 hours away. I was so, like, upset that I just missed it. And so I've luckily been able to get in tune with the community and carve out a spot within the game and the community to where I've had Nationals experience since. So it hasn't been as bitter. Like, I could see a lot of people coming in that situation. Oh, I just missed Nationals. Oh, the hype has kind of died down. And then by the time next National rolls around, they're not even involved anymore. So luckily it stuck with us, me and Brad, when we got into it. But I really enjoyed playing Flood when I first got into it, because, like, when I played Jay for the first time, he's like, this dude has a fully built, like, who are you? You just off the street, you have a fully built Flood deck. Because I didn't buy the contender deck. I bought individual cards and pieced together a
singles?
Flood deck. And yeah, I bought all singles. And you know where I bought them from? Yes, I bought them there. Dude, like my first year in the game, I probably spent like, no lie, I'm ashamed to even say it. It was probably touching 2,000 with Derek at Your Turn Games, because I was like having to buy all these by singles, and I was like, okay, well, I gotta have it. And the fact that my wife didn't kick me out, I'm so thankful that I have her as my wife and not someone else that would have put me out. But all of these like early experiences were wrapped around the fact I was playing a blue deck, and I was around Jay, who's a blue player. Like I was just influenced a little bit, and also I like the stories. And it's also like if you play, say for example, you play Clay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
how many different
example? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, okay, you play white. You play Nativity. How many different white offenses are there?
There's Nativity. There's Ruth. There's good stuff.
Empty
White,
Tomb,
which is not that great, but there's good stuff. White and Empty Tomb. Empty Tomb turns into Clay. Man, that's just there's not many options.
Yeah. So okay, now imagine blue.
Yeah.
You can play Flood, Sons of Jacob. You can play Antediluvians if you want to lose a bunch of games. You could play Patriarchs without focusing hard on the Sons of Jacob. You could use Abraham. You could use Isaac and things that are patriarchs, but are not necessarily sons of Jacob. So there's a lot of different avenues you can take just that one brigade and things, and you get to play the cards you like and kind of piece together the stories that you like and themes that you like into a deck. All of that's just okay. Like that's a big draw for me. And then on top of that, you get to play peace and you get to toss. Are you crazy? Yeah, I'm on that stuff.
Yeah.
So I would say that just all those early experiences and the fact that I like the content within the theme is really kind of what pulls me into that. And it's also, I'm not going to lie, the desire to make it good when people will actively tell you that blue stinks and it's never going to win anything.
Yeah.
Like that just makes you want to throw it in their face when you do well with a blue deck. So that's an element to it as well. I guess to piggyback off of that, would you say that you have a bias to any particular thing, or are you just trying to play whatever the best competitive thing is?
I like you. I don't actually love to play the literal top deck. Like I think this is one thing in my DNA. I talked about Jared. We talked about this last time we were in person too. Like I'd rather do a little bit of innovation. So like either I take the top deck and I change it enough to where it's got my signature on it, or I come up with a deck that can challenge the top deck and do well against everybody else. Like that's what I want to do at least. Time will tell if this actually turns out the way I think it is. But I like to do some of my winning in the deck building phase. I don't want to just go. I don't want to fight Jaden with the same copy of the deck and just hope to be outpilot Jaden. Like I know I could potentially sometimes outpilot him, but I'd rather have it.
Oh, could you?
Not
shots
often,
fired.
Not often. I'm just saying, like mathematically, like he'll outpilot me most of the time, but I know I could sneak a win by him on a piloting every once in a while. My point is, like, I'd rather come into the game with an advantage because my deck is well suited for the matches. So I try not to play just the best deck. If I can't find anything, I will play the best deck. But I'd like to put my own stamp on it and do that. As far as like what I'm drawn to, I really liked gold because I came in. It was my first like major deck. I don't think it has the juice to the speed to work right now, but I really like that brigade. And I like white and silver right now. I do like that for sure.
Okay, fair enough. So a little bit of bonus content there on that question for you, Mr. Benjamin Hull. And now we'll move on to our, I guess this is the part where we have famous people or famous things.
Yeah.
Pop culture joining the podcast here. We've got Megatron.
You have a voice modulator?
Yes. No, this is, no. Megatron. Tell me how I can obtain the power of these lost souls. They are essential to my next strategy to conquer the universe. These souls are essential to his next strategy to conquer the universe. So I think what we need to do is we need to tell him about the best deck that there exists in Redemption.
Yes.
To try to rescue these lost souls so that he can harness the power of these characters to rescue these souls so that he has them in his possession for his next conquering strategy. So we're going to put him on the best offense there is in the game. And we're talking about deacons, baby. We're giving him deacons
Timon.
and allowing him to harness the power of that theme to take over the world.
Take over the world.
So I think that's what we do. We give him, we just go ahead and we just bare our heart and tell him what the best strategy in the game is. And I think it's definitely that. If it wasn't that, then I guess the next closest would be because he likes, maybe because he likes powering up things.
Yes.
Maybe it would be the like Armor of God
That's
deck.
a really
that's
good
so
idea.
good right now.
That's so good.
Just you transform this one character and you rescue these souls.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, Megatron. You use those top two strategies within the game right now. Wink, wink.
You can't lose. Wink, wink. Definitely.
Guys, don't tell him.
Don't tell him.
Okay. And then the next question here, I'll let you take that one.
From Optimus Prime, I heard Megatron is trying to obtain these
You were doing
evil plan.
You were doing good before you broke.
Build my team to stop him. Who would you suggest to help me stop Megatron? So we need to help Optimus Prime roll out with his Autobots, huh?
Yep, the Autobots. It's kind of weird because we're giving Megatron good guys and now we're giving Optimus Prime bad guys. So if we need to stop him from obtaining these lost souls, how do we block that? What is the best strategy in the game legitimately to stop? Obviously, it's going to be hard to stop Deacons and Armor of God. It's going to be so hard. You almost auto win with those strategies. Exactly.
But if you had to pick something,
I mean, we learned earlier in the episode that apparently people are on gray only. Is that where we go?
I like gray, black, good stuff. I like Herods. Those are my and thieves. One of those three I think is your best way to steal it back from Megatron. So you're trying to steal back from Megatron. Let's take thieves. That's a good way to steal back from Megatron.
I'm good with that. I would also throw in if you're able to dedicate a lot of things because Autobots roll out and fight together.
Yes,
sounds like a banding defense.
Hey,
obviously thieves can band as well, but I mean I could see Optimus Prime being the Philistine commanders and just assembling the army.
Interesting.
And having all these weapons and attaching them and just transforming the appearance of that defense battle by battle.
Interesting.
I think I would throw in Philistines as well to stop these. I mean, you're probably not going to stop
You
the
can't
deacons.
stop Timon. He's just Timon.
So you probably just auto lose to the Armor of God deck as well. So there's not much you can do, but I think I would throw that in as a strategy to attempt to withhold these souls from Megatron.
That makes sense.
I guess we'll just have to wait till next episode to see which famous people are going to jump into the community mailbag. Yeah. Somebody out there is having a lot of fun with us, and we're going to have fun with you the whole way through. These. So, yeah. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the community mailbag. And also, right now, is going to be the end of the episode because this is the last segment that we have planned. We don't have a conversation with anybody on the back end here. But hopefully soon that will return. But is there any final parting words that you have for them, Mr. Wise Man?
Guys, I know time is short, but we need to get hyped for nationals, okay? I need to see the energy. I need to see some play testing. I need to see some ideas popping up. We need to crush it, guys, okay?
Yeah. I think it would be so awesome to, if it did happen, and I don't want to set expectations that we can't meet to where then we feel like we didn't achieve something. But could you imagine just what it's going to feel like? Because eventually it's going to happen. I don't know what nationals it's going to be, but we're going to be at one and it's going to be announced. This is the largest nationals ever. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's eventually going to happen. And that we might be a few years away from it, but we're trending in that direction. And I believe it's going to happen at some point. But can you imagine what it's going to feel like when they make that announcement that this right here is the biggest and largest, most attended for any other nationals that has come before it. And I know there's some big shoes to fill in that regard, but you got to get it started if you want to get it done.
Yep.
So people need to make plans, be there. 43 days away, nationals in Michigan. And with that, we'll sign off. Peace.
See you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Threshing Floor Podcast. Help us grow our community by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll talk to you next time on the Threshing Floor Podcast.